but I think the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
I don't know whether rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
Doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's up? This show's live. We do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and we talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. You know what they are. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. We are live, of course. We're streaming on Rockfin, D-Live, YouTube, and Twitter. And, of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. And we're taking your phone calls tonight, as always, as part of the transparency process, as part of, well, just having a conversation, as part of all those things. We've always had an open line during this show, multiple open lines, rather, and we're just going to continue that tradition because, well, the results have been fantastic because, of course, right, it's one thing if you want to tune in and just listen to me ramble on, and, you know, I can do that. That's no problem. I can ramble. You want to have a rambling contest? We can have a rambling contest, but that's just no fun, is it? That's absolutely no fun because, of course, I don't know a ton of things, all right? Sure, I know some things, but I don't know a ton of things. And so part of this whole journey of Troubled Minds has been sort of just learning. It's about kind of experiencing some things that people are not usually subjected to. And that's what this is about. It's about teaching each other. It's about coming together. It's more of a social club, less of a show here. And as exhibited by the amazing people that contribute and call in, and the podcasts that have been spawned and inspired by Troubled Minds, and vice versa. It's a large community, and it's a fantastic thing. And that's what this is all about. That's what it's always been about. And so that's my long-winded way of saying, if you'd love to be part of the show, I'd love to have you. You're invited, and we're going to be talking about Tartaria tonight, the mud flood theory and what that's all about. But first, before we get to that, if you want to be part of it tonight, 702-957-1037. That's a Las Vegas area code. That's where we're streaming from and broadcasting from. And of course, 702 is a Vegas area code, like I said. So if you don't like that, we have lots of folks listening to this show all over the world. Well, we have a Discord, a couple of them actually. And so if you want to be part of the show and don't like the Las Vegas long-distance area code, you're from Australia or something, or the UK or wherever, South Africa, let's say, well, Discord's totally free. Just go to troubledminds.org and click the Discord link. It's right on top of the website. And the phone number is there as well. So if you ever need anything from Troubled Minds, just go to the website, troubledminds.org. And there you go. There you go. All right. So with all that said, also please join the Discord at fringe.fm/chat. Discord is a chat client. It's a voice client, and it's free. Did I mention the best part about it is it's free, and you get to meet lots of people from all over the world, and it's an amazing place with amazing folks. So please do that, and you can also be on the show with that Discord, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord. Okay, anyway, with all that said, as we begin tonight, this one's actually for Clayton. If Clayton's out there, that's cool. If Clayton's not out there, then well, that's okay, because he can catch a piping hot archive. But so the thing is this, right? The thing is this. We take requests on this show, okay? If it's compelling, if it's something I've never heard of, that's even better. Because, when you go down these conspiracy rabbit holes and, kind of spend a lot of time down there, right? You got to kind of throw a rope up and make sure it's tied to something like a big rock, you know what I mean? So you don't fall in, because once you fall in, sometimes you can never come back. And I'm trying to avoid that. And so when I hear of something, peering into all these rabbit holes over the years while doing this show, 3.5 years strong, by the way, I'm very proud of that. The thing is that, well, you feel like you've heard it all. And so when you get one where you're like, wait a minute, what is that? I've never heard of that. Well, welcome to Tartaria, the nation of Tartary, as it were, and the theory of the mud floods. And so Clayton out there on Rockfin actually called in about a month ago at the end of September, I believe, or the beginning of October. And he was describing this theory, this mud flood theory about Tartaria and an ancient civilization that had been covered up. That is still being covered up, which we'll talk about. That's what the topic is tonight. And like I said, I don't know everything, obviously. I'm one person, and I promise I'm a person. I'm not a reptilian or a, well, what would you say? AI. I'm not like a malicious AI. Not yet, anyway. They haven't put the electrodes in my brain as of yet. But, as being one person, it's hard to know all the things. And so that's part of why we get together and do this. Like I said, we can kind of teach each other and look at the world in a different way. And there we go. That's what this is all about. So Clayton out there, when he called in, he was describing it that it's this really ancient empire, Tartaria, as it were. And they had free energy, and a lot of this was being covered up in history, number one. And number two, a lot of the evidence has been covered up in what's known as the mud floods, which we'll get to in just a sec. But that's what's on my mind tonight. And like I said, you guys are all invited to be on the show and to give us ideas for future shows, because, like I said, I'm especially interested when something pops up and I've never heard about it before, like ever. Like just recently, a couple days back, we did the Einstein at Roswell. That's a new one. Like, I thought I'd heard it all about Roswell, but apparently there's all kinds of other angles to all of these things. So there we go. So that's what this show's about, and looking to have a conversation with you guys tonight. So the first question I have before we get started is, have you ever heard of the mud flood theory? That's the question. Have you ever heard of Tartary? Of course, the ancient land that was on the maps in what is now Russia or northern China, Mongolia. That area. We'll pull up a map and look at it and consider exactly what's going on in this particular region. But yeah, I mean, have you heard of this? Is this one that's new to you? And doing some digging, I can't trace this back super far. It does seem to be one of those newer-ish conspiracies that which explains probably why I haven't heard of this. But in any case, like I said, I'm not the arbiter of knowing everything or the arbiter of truth in any capacity. So don't listen to me other than for an idea or two, and to maybe consider furthering your own interest in these things. And that's it. I'm not trying to convince you this is true or not true. So let's begin. Let's do it. Let's get to this. Now, this is from neverwasmag.com. And okay, let's just start. let's just read a little bit from this, and you guys can get the idea. So if you look at the map there, if you guys are watching the stream, we have the Lost Empire of Tartaria, okay? And you can see it. It's in the map again. You got China down below on the right side, and Grand Tartaria. Tartary is what it says on the map, but I've seen it spelled Tartary, Tartary like that. It's also Tatary. But it's basically like this huge chunk of, well, Russia, what appears to be Russia, right? And more, of course. It goes all the way down to India and China and everywhere else. So, again, kind of covers up Mongolia and that whole bit. But straight from the website here, the Lost Empire of Tartaria is the most delightful conspiracy theory. It posits that a technologically advanced civilization spanned Eurasia and perhaps parts of North America until as recently as a century ago, when it was erased from history. What's left of Tartaria are ornate and seemingly out-of-place structures, from opulent churches in Russia to the Shanghai Bund, B-U-N-D. The theory stems from disappointment in modern architecture. We once had fabulous Art Deco skyscrapers, Beaux Arts train stations, and Second Empire post offices. Now everything is a glass and concrete box. So, well, what happened? What happened? And that's just part of it. So as I was kind of going through some of this information, and it's oddly enough, there's not a ton just yet. It's really difficult to find information that kind of goes back a very long time on this idea of the mud floods and the empire of Tartary, the Tartaria, as it's known. But it is pretty cool that they've cited a whole bunch of architecture in terms of, right, you think of back in the architecture of maybe like the early 1800s, how things were kind of Russia-looking, very ornate, and how it's all changed. And now you have these weird, like exactly like they described, like these boxes and, box buildings and things like this. And so, there's theories on why this may or may not be. There's all kinds of things here. But I don't know. So we'll get to that. So that's where this begins. And like I said, once again, don't get me wrong, I don't know where I stand on this, just kind of learning like you are. Many of you may know a ton about this, and that's cool. That's why we do this together, so we can teach each other. But just as we begin, have you heard of this? Have you heard of the Empire of Tartary, or the land of Tartaria, and how it was an advanced civilization that goes back a very long time? And then, of course, what do you think here? What do you believe about this? There's the first couple ideas, but here we go. We're going to keep reading. So the theory is that Americans and Europeans didn't build those monuments. And let's see. They are the legacy of a Tartarian empire that emanated out of Northeast Asia. And okay, so just the map here. If you guys are looking at the map one more time, I'm gonna pull this up. You guys can take a look. So Tartary was basically written on a lot of maps. Okay, back in if you remember, hundreds of years ago, clearly the world wasn't completely mapped, and they used to call it was mostly as far as I recall here, looking at some of the maps that I pulled up, just trying to find the information on this, it was not all of Russia like this, and like all of Mongolia and all the way down. It seemed like it was mostly sort of north of China and east, right? So kind of up in that area of Ukraine and that, like kind of, through Mongolia up toward Ukraine was Tartary. But again, this theory seems to extend that quite a bit further. And so this isn't the first idea, actually. When I was looking at this and thinking about it, considering it, it did remind me of some other ideas of ancient civilizations that had possibly free power, that had giants, right? Tartary is actually said to have been a civilization that had giants roaming around on the regular. But it does kind of remind me of the stories of Lemuria, of Atlantis, of things like this, right? That, of course, Atlantis we're familiar with. It was, whether you believe in the old school version from the actual documents that were written thousands of years ago, or right into the conspiracy theory that there really was an ancient civilization, past the Pillars of Hercules and that whole bit. And of course that would mean they had free energy and all the rest of this stuff. I don't know. I think that's the weirdness here is that there are some parallels to this story, and not just Atlantis, Lemuria, and there's some other ones too. If you dig a little bit deeper, you can find examples all over the place of lost civilizations. Göbekli Tepe, things like this. And where they can't really trace how old these civilizations really are. So I don't know. That's kind of what piqued my curiosity in this. When I started digging, I was like, okay, I can see some parallels in some of these stories and how it fits. But okay, let's continue. Here we go. So it says, are we supposed to believe that the 18th century map makers drew a vast Tartaria in that region out of ignorance? It says, surely not. Straight from the article here. Tartaria was real, and it was the most powerful empire of its time. The Great Wall of China was built not by the Chinese to keep the barbarians out, but by the Tartarians to keep out the Chinese. There you go, right? Turning history on its head. Opinions are divided about the empire's demise. Some believe a biblical-sized mud flood decimated Tartaria, which also explains why so many old buildings have what we now call semi-basements. Adherent to this theory, suspect monuments like St. Basil's Cathedral and Moscow's Red Square continue tens or even hundreds of meters underground. Others suspect World War II was really a war of all against Tartaria, and the destruction of old Berlin, Dresden, Warsaw, and other cities in Central and Eastern Europe was a deliberate effort to wipe away the traces of a rival civilization. So, I don't know. Like I said, as I consider this, that the strangest part to me is that it seems that there was an actual. This is new. That this is like they're saying this empire of Tartaria was actually wiped out, as late as the 1850s or the early 1900s. And so this is in recent history here. This isn't one of those things that, again, dates back to like Atlantis, where it's, kind of been erased by the sands of time sort of situation. This is new. This is modern architecture, where they're trying to point out examples of how things changed or didn't change, and we're kind of that's what's going on. I don't know. What do you guys think on this? Looking to hear from you. Let's look at the chat here. Let's see. Yeah, talking about the mud floods tonight and Tartaria and the rest of this. I don't know. What's up? Tam Bam's got a good question. Can a mud flood be so gigantic to erase an entire place? I think the answer is yes. But I think that we're talking about like kind of on a worldwide scale here. If you look at the size of the map of Tartary, what used to be Tartary, the actual from Tartary, Tartary, the place on the maps, was basically like the Uyghur Muslims that live just north of China. It was kind of their neck of the woods, right? If you just look at the maps. But again, who knows? Who knows what's going on with this? I have no idea, really. But we're going to keep on trucking, keep on talking about this. But here's another one. This is from Bloomberg. And of course, right, the more you look into this, the more that they're just kind of dumping on everything, right? They're just kind of I'm going to read this too, and you'll see why. And which is okay to me, that everybody has an opinion. That's fine to me. But here's the weird part, right? This is from Bloomberg, and it starts like this. Inside the Tartarian Empire, the QAnon of architecture. And I'm like, okay, wait. The second you start trying to lump everything with QAnon, right? Like that makes my my tinfoil tighten up just a little bit. Not that I'm a Q adherent, but I do believe that there was some sort of manipulation with that movement from the government itself. And so, which they're still doing, not just with Q, probably other movements. And so when they start kind of crapping on things and putting them in framing that in terms of like the QAnon movement, it makes me wonder, right? I'm like, okay, wait, so why are we going to, if it's literally easy refuted, why do we got to just put QAnon in there, right? Anyway, so that's what this, I mean, it is Bloomberg after all, so what can you do? But anyway, here we go. So on YouTube videos and Reddit boards, adherents of a bizarre conspiracy theory argue that everything you know about history of architecture is wrong. All right, that's fine, right? I mean, we're talking about architecture. Anybody have an architecture degree out there? That would be an interesting conversation to get somebody who was kind of into that looking at this. But anyway, in 1908, architect Ernest Flagg completed the Singer Building in Lower Manhattan, a Beaux Arts showstopper made for the Singer Sewing Machine Company. Singer Sewing Machines, everybody knows the brand. From a wide base, a slender 27-story tower rose, topped by a mansard roof and a delicate lantern spire. Every inch dripped with sumptuous detail inside and out. Vaulted roofs, marble columns with bronze trim, window mullions with spiral fluting. The lobby was said to have a, quote, celestial radiance. A book was written just about its construction. For a year, it was the tallest building in the world at 612 feet and a celebrated landmark for decades after that. And, well, of course, there you go. And so architecture has changed. But, right, where does this fit in here? And how does this begin? How does this story begin is the question. Of course, it begins with Tartary on the maps, which they kind of labeled that area above Mongolia all the way up to the end of the ocean there, the Pacific Ocean with Russia and the rest of that. But then, okay, here we go. There's a little bit more here, but not for too much longer. All right. Despite its great height, a pencil-thin tower lacked office space. In the 1960s, the company sold its ornate headquarters, and demolition proceeded in 1967. It's the tallest building to ever be peacefully demolished. And that's where this kind of comes in, okay? That's where this story sort of begins. And if you look again at the photographs here from this article, they're talking about architecture. They're talking about how things change very quickly from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And as you can see now, you go to New York City, and there's not a lot of this left anymore, or any large city that had huge skyscraper-type buildings. It's all squares and rectangles and all the rest of this stuff. So I don't know. So again, as you know, like I said, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. Just kind of going through this and taking it step by step and seeing where this started and if there's anything to this theory. So like I said, if you guys are into this and you know a little bit about this, I'd love to hear your take, because it does seem to have the story goes back a ways, but I can't find anything more than kind of recently, like these articles, basically dumping on the idea, right? And so, like I said, once you start lumping this in with the Q theories and those Q movements and things like this, I get suspicious, because, maybe it's just a way to, crap on conspiracy theory all the way around. You know how they try and lump everything together and say, well, if you believe in that, then you believe in all of it and all the rest of this stuff, right? And once you start doing that, especially from like a mainstream perspective here, including Bloomberg, it does make me suspicious. So yeah, let's go. We got somebody new over here, and we got MK Ultra. What's up, buddy? Over in on Rockfin, filling me in on some details here. Let's see. So how did this begin? We'll do this a little bit, and then we'll take your calls if you guys are interested. And let's see. Let's go. You guys had some good chat here, but it scrolled so far. I have to go back. All right. So anyway, let's see. Okay, trying to find it. Too much chat, right? That's a good blessing to have. Okay, but anyway, so the Mud Floods, Tartaria, and of course the map of the Tartary Empire is where this begins. The map, of course, and then what our good buddy MK Ultra says is that it also began with not just the map of Tartary, but with Russia in particular trying to keep people from using that term anymore because, of course, right, it was Mother Russia. And so we have a cover-up. We have an actual state actor, a huge country that with powerful censorship, which are still super into censorship, trying to tell people not to use the term Tartary anymore. It's going to be Russia, isn't it? And so, well, that's where the cover-up begins. And so we have the architecture, which we'll get into a little bit more. That first article we looked at has tons and tons of pictures, if you can see some of these things, all the way back. And, 1889 and on from there. So yeah, that's what's on my mind tonight. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not an expert here, just kind of talking my way through it, and we'll look at some of the other evidence that they've described and even get to what a mud flood might be. Because, well, who knows? The mud flood itself, right? Everybody knows what a landslide is and this type of thing. But what happens when you have a mud flood on a worldwide scale? It seems biblical, doesn't it? It seems maybe biblical in scope and scale. And so then my maybe juice starts to kick in, and I'm like, okay, let's consider this. We've heard about the great floods and all the rest of this stuff, right? Why not a mud flood? So, as we discuss this and consider this possibility, you tell me, have you heard of this? Do you believe this is possible? And, of course, we're talking about ancient civilizations, Tartary, the land of Tartaria, and the cover-up. It's trying to keep us from learning our real history. As the theory goes, Love to hear your thoughts on this tonight. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. Your calls and more Tartaria after the break. All right, welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, D-Live, YouTube, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're talking about Tartaria and the Mud Floods. Have you heard of this? Love to hear your thoughts. I'm told this goes way deep into the rabbit hole, but I'm just scratching the surface because when you tell these tales that are so deep down the rabbit hole, the details become foggier and foggier. And so, well, we're going to start easy on this one. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course, because the reason we do this live is to include you and to get an idea of what you think about this, if you've heard of it, and hopefully you can teach me something and as we go and consider talking about this. So one more time, if you want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. And we'll put you on the show. Troubledminds.org is the official website. You can find the Discord link there. Watching that chat, watching all the chat, and trying to bounce around now to all these different windows. Usually I have it smoothed out, but everything broke just before we started again, so what can you do? All right. So anyway, that's what's on my mind tonight. So as it begins, it starts like this, all right? We're going to read... This is Tartary itself, all right? So Tartaria and the Mud Floods, it's, again, the whole theory is this. It's that there's an actual... cover-up happening of this ancient civilization that's been around for a very long time. And they are now erasing that because, of course, it has free energy. They talked about having giants walking around and being there. They talked about all kinds of things. And, as we've heard from the infamous, or famous, actually, probably famous is a better word for the man, Nikola Tesla. He actually suggested free energy, right? And the rest of this kind of flowing through the air. So that technology in and of itself doesn't seem to be ridiculous, at least, within a few hundred years here. So, if you're talking about an ancient civilization that's been around a long time and was maybe into this free energy idea, then that doesn't seem too far out there for me. I think that's okay. I think, just within, like I said, I'm not the arbiter of truth here, just kind of talk my way and think my way through it as we go. But, what do you think? As usual, right? I'd rather hear from you guys because, like I said, we could have a rambling contest, and I could probably win a rambling contest. But educating people and having a fun conversation, that takes more than one person usually. Takes a village, as they say, right? So, looking to hear from you guys. Have you heard of this Tartaria mud flood thing? And if you haven't, well. What do you think of the story so far? So we're going to keep on trucking here and kind of go into this, but I'm not exactly sure. Let's see, just going through the chat here. What's going on, guys? Okay, so all right, so here's the deal. Let's go back to now the mud flood conspiracy, right? Now, okay, let's start here. Actually, this is another term for the Great Reset, by the way. I'm also reading that. So here we go. One of the theories is the mud flood conspiracy, which is almost on par, they call, with flat Earth here. And like I said, I'm not sure if that's a dig or if that's trying to line the two up together. I don't know. But the mud flood is a relatively young idea. Even though I enjoy a good conspiracy theory, this is from DoverCrimsonian.com. I haven't heard of this until recently. And I'm with this guy. I haven't heard of this until very, very recently, like a month ago. A general synopsis of this theory is that within the last 100 to 1,000 years, civilization was reset and humanity lost much of its knowledge and many advanced technologies. This reset was caused by a huge flood that covered the land in a few feet worth of sediment. A few theorists equate this flood with the Great Flood of the Bible. If this theory is true, it would throw the Bible's timeline off by more than 1,000 years. There are even fewer theorists that believe that church steeples were used to radiate electricity through the air and that giants ruled the earth. But that is a whole different story that would require diving into the rabbit hole head first. So for now, we'll just cover the basics. And this is kind of where we're at tonight with the basics, like I said. So we got giants, we got free energy, we've got ancient architecture that's been covered up, and not just covered up by, in particular, let's say, demolitions covered up by these mud floods. And it's a little bit unclear. I couldn't find exactly what caused these mud floods on a worldwide scale, or if this has been a process that's happened over thousands of years here. But again, like I said, that's why we do this live and to include you. So if you know a little bit more about this than me, that's perfect. If you want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link, watching all the places. Okay, so this continues then. This is again from dovercrimsonian.com, and all the links are down below, right there on YouTube. They're already there. Okay, so perfect time for the phone line to just drop. But okay, there we go. Let's call that back. All right, remind me to unmute that, please. Okay, anyway, let's see. A few theorists equate this flood with the great flood of the Bible, and of course, it throws the theory off the Bible timeline by 1,000 years or more. Okay, there are even fewer that believe. Okay, the proof of this flood comes from many examples of buildings that have seemingly been buried, either fully or partially under the ground. There are pictures circling the internet showing Russia's Winter Palace, the U.S. Capitol building, and St. Mary Magdalene Church having been dug out to reveal lower levels than previously known. These are three examples that seem to be commonly used by supporters of the mud flood conspiracy as evidence. There are the other various examples used, though, as countless examples of buildings with windows below ground level exist. These pictures make it seem as though some of these buildings had been intentionally buried and forgotten about. And so we're talking about, I've seen this type of stuff in photographs, and so we're talking about, basements, sub-basements even, and then maybe them digging out doing construction. I don't know. That's like the basic normie take on that. But if this is as widespread as they say it is, then we have something else entirely here, don't we? Let's see. What else do we got? Let's see. Reading the chat. What's up, guys? Just hanging out, reading this stuff. And okay, all right. So here we go. Let's just keep on trucking through this. Because like I said, this is new to me. So if you guys have ideas on this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's see. Let's unmute that phone line, make sure everything is working. Okay, all right. So there we go. There we go. There are other various examples used, though, as countless examples are buildings from, let's see, hold on. Where am I? Where's my place? Okay, it says, these pictures make it seem as though some of these buildings have been intentionally buried and forgotten about. This is seemingly no logical explanation for this, they say in the article. Some have tried to debunk this theory by bringing up what is referred to as the cultural layer of dirt. This layer is sediment and dust that builds up around the places that humans live. However, this has only brought up more questions. Why would previous generations let this layer build up so high? This has resulted in another large part of the theory, which is that some of the history has been simply rewritten or erased. And again, here we go. Have you ever heard of the Tartarian Empire? And of course we have, because we were just talking about it. And if you look at old ancient maps, then yeah, you've probably heard of it too. So I don't know. That's where we're at. That's where this thing begins. But like I said, we have a cover-up of a worldwide scale here. An ancient civilization that supposedly has been around for a very long time, at least 1,000 years, with free energy technology, with giants being a normal thing, with all kinds of different theories here. But like I said, coming up awfully short unless you want to go way down the rabbit hole. Let's see. There we go. MK Ultra talking about brick batteries. What's going on? Ronald says Mike could definitely win a rambling contest. There you go, right? What's up, guys? Reading the chat. All right. We got a phone call. Thank you for bailing me out here. Let's go to Jennifer in Missouri. Jennifer, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. It's raining here. We've had some really bad storms. So I don't know if it's going to be a solid connection or not, but I wanted to call in.
Got you. Yeah, you sound fantastic. Go
I'm really glad you're doing the topic. I mean, everybody's kind of covering it lately, and so I'm glad you're, going to cover it too. About 3 or 4 years ago, I was doing a lot of research about hidden archaeology, hidden history, that kind of thing. And I was particularly interested in the Sumerians. And the Sumerians, which are actual, kind of the Scythians and these ancient tribes around the Caucasus and the Eastern Steppe. And when I was researching it and looking at the comparative religions, like all of the, just all the really ancient religions and cultures going back in history, I began to think that there was an empire, that was probably there. And if you look at the biblical history, when they talk about going over the waters, actually the beginning, even the introduction of Genesis, I began to wonder if it was like an account of an event where they were sailing ships. And I was looking at that, and I was thinking then, and then I began to think that there had been a very ancient, world-inclusive empire of trade and much more going on than just these, kind of Stone Agey thing. I was beginning to think there was a higher technology going on. And then in this, I think it was last year, or 2019, I think, that I was researching it again, but then Tartaria was coming up. And people were talking about that, and I was like, yes, that's got to be it. But then I was researching about that. Now, the problem is, though, that I kind of have a little bit of, there's a lot of questions going into it. But we've heard of Pangea, and, that's about 300 million years ago. And I think what's really controversial about it is I want to insinuate, and there's a lot of things that historically would help to insinuate, that this concept of Tartaria would insinuate that when there was continental drift going on, there were people existing. And in the geography books, that's not what it says, that there were no people present for the continental drift. And this postulates that there was, so that Pangea and Gondwana land, that those were populated by an ancient civilization. And what you would have is that the North American craton, which is like the landmass beneath the surface of the earth there, was connected across North America, Siberia, and Russia, and even the east parts of the Eastern Europe, what we'd consider Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and of course Russia, Siberia, so in that whole region. And then coming over even into the further west side of Europe. And then you have another landmass that would make up Africa, India, the Arabian Peninsula, and Antarctica, along with South America. And I think I mentioned Africa. And that was a different landmass. And so you have these two. The differences are that the fossils and the type of architecture and the costumes of the times that we talk about in present day, but what I mean is like the folk clothing of these original areas, which you see when you look at folk costumes of Japan, China, and in Europe. If you look at the more Germanic regions, their folk clothing is very unusual. And they have strange hats, these tall pointed hats that are found, and the style of weaving, too. So it's not just limited to the architecture. And this insinuates that they were trading. And when they have this collision, I'm not so sure that one landmass was entirely aware of the other one, because the concept of this is that they were surrounded by a super ocean. And this is just, geography you'd learn in school, that there was it was called Panthalassa or something like that. It was the super ocean that surrounded Pangea. So they didn't realize that there was another landmass, that they wouldn't have if there were people there. They would just think that there was nothing but water. But when this was happening over a period of time, the landmasses would get closer and they began to have contact. And this explains a lot of the Akkadian wars and the Assyrian wars we hear about, and the Sumerian too. But they aren't it's like you're combining 300 million years ago of what they would consider to be a geography thing occurring in prehistoric times. But we're combining it into modern times where we're saying that they're connected, that maybe it wasn't 300 million years ago, or there were people on the earth 300 million years ago. And that's why I think it's controversial. And there's a covering up because that Pangea means basically, one Earth, so that they didn't. There had to have been like a massive conflict that occurred because you have a clashing of two different empires, essentially. And that's what I think is fascinating about Tartaria, if I were trying to talk about it. And I've always wanted to.
Yeah, it's also part of the theory, too. I was reading some of this, and it gets a little bit uncomfortably close to describing World War II as being the basis for destroying this ancient civilization by destroying basically all of Eastern Europe, most of Western Europe, and then basically all of Western Russia as well. Was an effort to actually begin to cover up, or maybe the ending of covering up this huge civilization there. And so some of the things I found were a little, let's say, a lot distasteful regarding, because Holocaust denying and things like this. I was just like, is this where this leads? But I mean, just because one guy or two guys say it, that doesn't mean it's a thing, right? It's just like kind of made me turn my nose up a little bit, which is, understandable. But I don't know, regarding all the rest of that, like you pointed this out extremely well here, better than I have, that it kind of is in line with that creationism a little bit, right? With, how they say that the world is only, 1,000 years old or something like this. Like, wouldn't that kind of fit this sort of thinking here? Go ahead.
Well, I think it conflicts with it. They want to insinuate that that people of that time period were using simple tools and were incapable of doing what we can do today. But in fact, this would say that they were doing it, and they were doing it better, possibly even, and that they were doing it, or maybe not. It doesn't even have to be that. It just it's the fact that there have been multiple worlds, and that it has to do with the fact that the land masses we know that the land masses are constantly moving. I mean, there's La Palma right now going on, and it's constantly happening. Constantly. There are earthquakes and volcanoes and all these things, and all of the gorges in North America and all around the world are formed by moving glaciers and land masses crashing into each other. So we know this, just from geography, that this has happened multiple times. What that would insinuate, though, is that there have been people in these worlds each time, and that there may have been hidden civilizations and worlds, not just like these prehistoric people, but that the world would have formed and then been disrupted, and they have different names entirely. Like they call it Earth now, and they call it, they call it North America and South America and, Africa and Europe and India and China. They do that. But we're talking, that's how our world looks right now. And this is the world we're living in. But when the world was a different shape, it was a different world, and people were different. And so we were different. And that's what I think is the most important thing. Not so much about, I don't know how any of the other stuff would fit into it as far as having any kind of, the dirtier topics that they're trying to insinuate with it aren't necessary whatsoever. What's important is that we have an entire world civilization, that there was an empire worldwide that was trading and interacting and was advanced on a massive scale, possibly more advanced than we would give it credit for, and that it's been continual for millions of years, and that there are these amazing architectural, displays are ancient beyond comprehension, some of them, or based off of things more ancient than the present world we have, and that there was a whole world before, and that there was a world before that one. And it had to do with land masses and continents moving. And it's mind-boggling to think, and well, we know it's true, though. Like, I mean, Pangea and that's not fringe topic, that the continents were all touching at one point that we're aware of. But the concept, though, that there were land masses from somewhere far away, and that we weren't aware of each other, and that would explain a lot of the wars that occurred, because there'd be some conflict about that as people were moving around. Ice ages. There was a mini ice age not long ago. People say that we're coming out of an ice age right now. So it's insinuating that there were people that long ago that were not new on the earth, and that there have been people on the earth for millions of years, and even in prehistoric, pre-Jurassic times, and that's what that would insinuate. And that people that it's being covered up because it may have been just as great or greater than it is now. And if you were to say that people had been on the earth for millions and millions of years, it makes it much harder to control and form a government, especially if we were once a part of, I don't know. It's an amazing topic, but I think there's so much disinformation mixed in with it. I think that people are trying to make it into something that people don't want to listen about or try to understand, even though there's geographical evidence of these continents being where they would make sense for this to happen. And there are people placements for this to explain the same thing. And there are cultures and the textiles, the way that fabrics are woven, the building techniques in certain regions are the same, but there's no way they could have been in contact from what we understand. But this would insinuate that they were, and that this empire they're talking about with Tartaria would explain that, but it stops there. And that's where it doesn't make sense, is that there's more behind that, and they're hiding entire world systems that were existing before this one. Because as we know right now, the oldest civilization would be Sumeria and Babylonia regions in India. And this would insinuate that there is something much older than that, and then even much older than that, and that they've covered that up. And so it is displayed in the architecture, but it's also displayed in the religious beliefs of the people in all these regions. It's displayed in their stories. And I think that's it, as far as my take on it, my mindset on it. But it is amazing because I think we're taking it's because there's a denial about people being on the earth millions of years ago, and I think, and if we've been here for millions and millions of years and have interacted in a very technological way, I guess technology being, depending on how you want to consider that. Of course, today we think technology, we think computers and things like that, but technology could be something, shipbuilding is no easy feat, and traveling by water like that, and even people coming into contact with each other, human beings that they've never seen before even, and cultures that they've never witnessed before. But we know that they were interacting because you find them where they shouldn't be. You find tartan in China. It shouldn't be there for the time period. There was a 4,000-year-old mummy buried right along with kings or emperors, I suppose, in China. So that were wearing tartan. The weaving is really that's what's interesting. And the strange hats. They were wearing strange hats. You'll notice on all of the Arcadian, all the the sculptures on the walls in Babylonia and that ancient area in Sumeria, that they have the pointed hats and all this stuff. Well, it's displayed all over the world, so I don't know. They were wearing funny hats. We'll just put it that way, at least for that world. And there was a lot of the fighting techniques and everything that were used. So but they're talking about that's the end of that era right there, technically. It would be insinuating that all that war we're hearing about is because they were colliding at that point. The empire was dying and a new empire was taking hold.
So it is the Great Reset before the Great Reset of sorts. Amazing stuff, Jennifer. You are way ahead of me on this. I appreciate it so much. We're out of time, as you know. Thank you so much for calling. Everybody follow Jennifer. She's got a YouTube channel. Scroll down. It's right there on Rockfin and also on YouTube. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Have a great night. Thanks a lot. There you go. That one right there, that was a call. Thank you, Jennifer, bailing me out. kind of filling in some blanks that I hadn't heard of, I didn't know. Like I said, this one goes deep. And so if you know about Tartaria, the mud floods, and have some theories like this, love to hear from you. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. We are talking about the alien abduction phenomenon.
The aliens are looking through your eyes and they're accessing your optic nerve. I'm doing that. And through that optic nerve, they're transferring to your brain. People are random images as they traverse neurons in the brain.
So we got, all right, so maybe
and they also feel them planting.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
right, good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. All right, tonight, of course, we're streaming on Rock Band TV Live, YouTube, and Twitter, broadcasting live on Fringe FM like we do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And tonight, we're talking about the mud floods of Tartaria, as it were. And, well, this is an ancient civilization that's been covered up through history, including recently in the last 100 years. We're talking about free energy, we're talking about giants, we're talking about all kinds of things. Architecture, and I don't know. It seems to be sort of a new theory, and I'm trying to track some of this stuff down, and it's difficult, but what can you do? All right, you can't hear me over the music. Got it. Watch this. I have that technology. Watch me turn it down. See, this is what happens when you have technical issues. Things break, the mixing gets broken, and yeah. All right. Anyway, so in any case, we're talking about Tartaria tonight, the mud floods. We're talking about an ancient civilization that's been sort of covered up, and free energy and giants and all the rest of this. So I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. Again, you guys know the deal. I don't have the answers here. If I was the answers guy, it would be simple to just say, here are the answers, and then end the show. But I have some questions here. There's some ideas here that are, I don't know. Let's say cognitive dissonance. There's a lot of gaps I need to fill in here to be able to bridge this in my mind, but that's okay. Looking to hear from you guys. If you want to be part of the show tonight, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, and we can put you on the show. Speaking of on the show, welcome, Derek in Massachusetts, the Night Stalker. What's up, my man? How are you tonight?
Going on, Mike? Great show tonight.
Thank you. Well, I'm trying, but like I said, fumbling with a lot of this because it is kind of dense, isn't it? It's one of those dense theories. If you can really chase this back for forever, kind of, can't you?
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those rabbit holes that never really end. It's one that's really kind of built on the idea that everything you know and everything you've ever been taught is a lie. You know, it's not. I wouldn't say it's flat Earth level, but it's gets to the type of vibe where like nothing you've ever been told is right, and you have to relearn everything. So it's kind of I don't know, it's dense. I have some friends that are really, really heavily into it and have been like diving down it for seemingly like 3-4 years now, and they're still not at the end of it. So yeah, I don't think it's possible to cover it in one night, but you're doing a great job from my end, Mike.
Thank you. Just trying here. Shout out to Jennifer for saving my butt there. Appreciate that. Amazing insight. So your friends have been looking into this. You're far more familiar with this than myself. What else am I missing? So it's free energy, giants. This goes back who knows how long. I don't know. What are some other things that maybe you could add to this that, a knucklehead like me might not know?
I'm definitely not an expert on it. I've only really just been across it from being in these circles and stuff. I haven't really taken the full deep dive to where I don't call myself an expert on it. But and for sure is like the hottest conspiracy theory of the last like 5 years, probably, like the mud flood and the mud fossil theories separately. Two mud theories, weirdly, but those seem to be the hottest ones in the conspiracy zeitgeist right now. But yeah, I don't know. Like there's certainly levels to it. Like the entry level is kind of the lost civilization that's been suppressed in history. It's tied together through the architecture that you can see in these major cities. This kind of like Russian, like dome-shaped kind of Gaussian physics type free energy idea. But then it can go into like some of my friends believe that as early as like the early 1900s, they were wiping away like almost like the entire planet, and that like almost nothing that we have now from before 1900 was built by us. That it was all essentially dug up and uncovered. That like all of California and like specifically like San Francisco and stuff were just covered in mud, and when they walked into it, there was like a bunch of roofs basically, and they like dug down and uncovered the buildings. Essentially, is like the extreme version of it, and that it happens like all the time. That it's almost like the Matrix, where they have like 6 or 7 different incarnations of the Matrix, and they keep like resetting it that way. That like the powers that be keep like resetting the planet, you know. And then it also gets into those like shout out Chance. He always brings us up when we get into the after show talks, but like the repopulating the planet and these ideas that they're bringing these trains of orphans all around the country and all around the planet to like repopulate these cities after they wipe them out, you know. I don't know. There's a lot of just it's heavy maybe juice, and I'm interested in it, and I think there's some compelling parts to it, but a lot of it feels like it's forming narratives around old pictures. I mean, like, I found an old picture of a bunch of orphans. Where are their parents? Maybe there's no parents. Maybe they were shipping orphans around the country. You know, that's seems like how that idea like was spawned to me. Like, oh, that's fascinating. It's a cool idea, but I don't know how much water it really holds. You know, but the architecture aspect of it is really very compelling to me, and the idea that a lot of these cities, like even in America, like how it's like the Greek and Roman type architecture all in our major cities and stuff, how that might not be from us, and that might not even be Greek. It might be like a remnant of this old technology, you know. So if you search like Tartarian architecture on Google Images and stuff, you find a lot of like collages that show how like countries that seemingly have no historical connection with each other, that even have been rivals or clearly don't have any type of like collaboration, have the same type of architecture, have like identical buildings, like Washington, like the Capitol building and stuff looks like there's like a Capitol building facsimile in essentially every major city in the entire world, you know. And the idea that there was some civilization that interlocked all those, you know.
Yeah.
But like Tartaria is a real place. It's not like it hasn't been fully suppressed. It actually like it's in books, it's in history books. So like one of the fascinating parts of it is that it's trying to find books that have information on it. So like I've been to bookstores trying to find like the idea is to find one before like 1850, and then you'll find like really, really dense Tartaria information in it, as if it's like there was a world empire and they were discussing it. I've never found those, obviously. I've probably gone back as like 1920, and it's just like a small paragraph, essentially just calling it a region like around China and Russia, kind of like the Mongol area and that type of ethnicity, you know. But it's, I don't know, there's so many different rabbit holes you can go down. I'm kind of just rambling right now, but it's interesting stuff for sure.
That's okay. Well, welcome to my world. So we got a picture up here of the Capitol building, and it appears that they've done some kind of there's a construction going on, but they've dug down below the actual level, the ground level, and there's clearly like a substructure here. And so I think in this particular case, it doesn't make too much like big deal to me, because clearly you're going to have like in these government type buildings, you're going to have escape routes. I mean, like they burned down the White House back in the 1800s, for crying out loud, right? So I mean, there's going to be places like this that are like, don't they say they have like an underground bowling alley at the White House? You know what I mean? So that type of stuff doesn't really freak me out. But if this is like all over the place, right? I think that's when you start to consider, wait, what's up?
I think it's relying on the fact that that just trying to point out that the way we're building stuff is getting worse and worse and worse. And like, it's like the idea being like the elites aren't building these ridiculous underground structures. The elites aren't building these crazy, elaborate, even skyscrapers. There's a lot of skyscraper ideas that they're also a way to they're like lightning rods to an extent, that they're siphoning in energy from the environment, and that if you look at I've said this before too, that drive around the street and look at people doing construction, or look at nothing is getting done, nothing is getting built. The infrastructure is just absolute garbage. So the idea that we created these things, it seems to get more and more far-fetched. The more you kind of dig into it, it's kind of what the idea is depending on, and that there has to be some kind of advanced civilization that actually did it, and we're just living in the fossils of that civilization. I don't know. It's interesting, but I'm not sure. I give us a little more credence, but there is a real Tartarian. I asked Rivers about it. Shout out Rivers, the amazing genius Rivers. She was saying how growing up that they call a specific ethnicity the Tartar people, and they're a mix of the Mongols and different cultures out there, and that they're for sure a real people that existed, and it's common knowledge. And I believe I don't quote me because I don't have the articles in front of me, but I believe that there's supposedly death camps and actual types of prison camps for this specific ethnicity. I think they're called the Uyghur people.
Yeah.
That are supposed to be this Tartar. They're the Tartars. They're the descendants of this Tartarian empire.
Which are in concentration camps in China. Yes.
In China, exactly. Yeah, that they're actively trying to. That's why they're in there, is because that they're descendants of this Tartar empire. The idea being basically that the controllers of the world right now seem like they don't have any rivals. I know there's a big China versus United States idea, but I don't really maybe on some level, but at the very, very tippity top of the power pyramid, I believe they're all on the same team. So there is a compelling idea that at some point there was another team. There was another group of elites. There was another massive empire that was fully up to the challenge of taking on the current elites, and potentially this group was maybe more benevolent, and they were actually using free energy, and they weren't suppressing it, and it was built into the entire civilization. And that's the whole star fort idea, that they worked their architecture into being able to use the energy from the planet and from the environment around them and stuff, which is really compelling and stuff. But again, I don't know how much truth there is in that part of it,
Yeah.
And it really just goes it goes wild. One of the more wild ideas that I remember being a big discussion with it, especially amongst my friends 2 or 3 years ago, was the idea that there in a lot of these Tartarian architectures that they point at, there's no bathrooms. So there was at one point a huge theory about how these Tartarian people, or whatever these not the ones that exist right now, but whatever this during the peak of their civilization, they didn't go to the bathroom, that they were breatharians that didn't need to use the bathroom. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, where you just some little idea just pops up on the internet, and then it just catches and latches on to some actual piece of hidden history. And it's this weird mismatch of this truth, I believe in this part of hidden history, and this could be an idea, it could fit into it, but it's tough to parse what's truth and what's just a compelling idea, And especially it was formed around the new chronology time, with the idea that they inserted 1,000 years into our history. And now that's kind of faded off, and the mud flood idea has completely taken that over, and just incorporated that idea into it. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. So I was going to ask you then. So this Starfort thing, is that sort of like the ley lines situation? Is that something similar? Right?
Yeah,
we talk about ley lines.
Exactly.
So they're placed in these particular areas where they're kind of just sucking up the natural power from the magnetic field on the Earth and things like this, and then they're able to share it freely. Very much like I said in the beginning, how Tesla, he described that as being a thing, and some of that conspiracy theory goes to they shut him up because they didn't want him doing that stuff. They wanted to charge you for it, right? And of course, look at the big money that came out of that, and you don't need to name the families that are running these things, but. Right. I mean, it's like that stuff sort of makes sense to me. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and again, that's part of it. It's the idea that there's an ancient civilization or a not so ancient civilization that existed that's been suppressed because they're suppressing all of our history, yada yada. That was the equivalent of what if we let Tesla take over? I mean, what if Edison didn't steal all Tesla's stuff and he actually became famous and we used free energy, and what would happen? And the idea that this Tartarian Empire was that, and somehow, whether it's like some kind of act of God, biblical thing, or that there's like resets happening constantly. Like I know Max Egan talks about, like every 200 years he thinks these mud floods happen, and then it's like very, very common, and that if the elites know that they can prepare for it, and that everyone just forgets after it happens, and you have to rebuild society. I don't know. A lot of it is just based on the fact that the West doesn't really know much about Russian history before the World Wars, So it's like, I don't know. It's a lot of it's great maybe juice, but it is one of those ones where it's who knows what's true. Like Jennifer did a great job talking about it because she made some really compelling points, and I just don't know what to make of it. It's fascinating stuff. But
I agree, and I think just sort of stretching the imagination even just a little bit. I think it's not too hard to say that if you have competing civilizations, right, that the new one would want to stomp out the old one. We've seen that time and time again throughout history. So that part to me it's super compelling because clearly it's about learning history. All right, it's about really finding out what happened instead of like Lily said in the chat there, the victors write history. And so there is a ton of that. We've talked about that in the past on this show with that. What was the Pope in the year 1000 and they skipped 1,000 years, and there's like a whole bunch of that stuff too going on. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
Exactly. It's true. And that's what it seems like. It's something like it's taking all of these things that are pillars of conspiracy culture. The idea that like the victors write history's been suppressed, hidden archaeology, the elites are manipulating us, yada yada, free energy is a possibility, yada yada, and then like as if the internet is like writing a theory based on those things is like the vibe I get from it, that like there's so many true things within it, but just the entire narrative for some reason I don't resonate with fully. That I think there's a lot of really compelling stuff in the architecture, especially something I'm very, very interested in, and especially like the ley line thing you mentioned, that's all this hidden knowledge and this like metaphysical science was incorporated into this Tartarian Empire. That's the idea. So, which is really, really, really cool to me. And I think if I do believe that the state capitals and like all like the ancient Greek architecture and stuff that's in that is because it's on these portal spots, these hot spots, these ley lines. And then look at the last 2 years. Look at all the protests that have been happening, all the major events across not just America but the world. That if you're like when I was watching these newsreels of all these protests happening in front of these Capitol buildings worldwide under the Tartarian paradigm, essentially they were happening in front of these Tartarian architecture, and which was a really like kind of a cool thing, like mentally. I mean, like, oh wow, like they're doing these like charged up ritual events at these like Star Fort Power Center Tartarian type of architecture. Like I don't know, that all that stuff is really, really cool to me, but sometimes it goes one step too far with me.
Yeah, right. It's easy to take a wrong left turn on the way to Albuquerque.
Exactly. A lot of it depends on us only knowing the conspiracy angle of it, and I like to, although I'm pretty good at like regular history too. Like I enjoy regular history. Like, so unless all of that is fake, then like it relies on you not knowing much of that and you only knowing the conspiracy angle of it. And then and my favorite conspiracies are the ones that bridge everything together, that unify everything and don't have, but then again, like part of it relies on the fact that history could be all a lie, and that everything I did know in history class might be wrong, you know. And I am very, very much open to that. So you can't throw it out, you know. And I don't know. I'm really rambling, but
no, you're fine.
It's interesting stuff. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah. So it is new though, right? This is not
very new.
You won't find this conspiracy like 20 years ago. Like this is probably within
no.
6, 7 years, right?
Yeah. I saw this one birthed from inception, I believe. Yeah, it's like 5 years ago, probably at the latest. At the same time as the mud fossil one, which is different, which is also interesting. That's the idea that like there were giants. That's more the giant one. That like mountains are actually these massive, massive titans that like essentially died and laid down and were wiped away by this huge mud flood. And that like I don't know. It's wild stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought I had something else to say. Let me check my notes real quick before I hang up.
Sure.
But
sure. All right, I'll buy you a minute, man. So if you guys are into this, we're talking about Tartaria, the mud floods. And is this real? Like, what do you think about this? Have you heard of this? If so, is this new to you? If not, what do you know about it? I see we got some folks in the chat that are pretty keen and up to date on this stuff. But again, it's new to me. Like I said, without Clayton calling in about a month ago, I'd never heard of this. He was talking about it, and I was like, what? And then Chance is a ghost also on the Discord. Again, if you guys haven't joined the Discord, troubledminds.org, click the Discord link, get in here. Lots of great people hanging out and sharing ideas. And that's the second time I heard of it from Chance, like 2 nights after that. 2 nights after Clayton called.
Exactly, yeah.
And the Red Mercury and all kinds of stuff, right? This thing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to seem like I'm poo-pooing this theory, because I'm not. I think it's worth the dive into, and I think it's worth looking into. But just it's definitely one that you can get lost in pretty quickly. So just make sure you're tethered to your boat before you hop in the ocean, type of deal. But yeah, before I leave, I think just the Tartarus connection. Like I've never heard a real reason why it's so much like Tartarus. And if there was a nation, or an empire of Tartaria, like somebody would have made that. Like why is it? I don't know. Are they based on the same etymology? Like what's the connection between the two of them? Is it the idea that Tartaria has been buried, so now it's some kind of underworld thing, but that it's supposed to happen after ancient Greece? I don't really know, but that's one of the questions I've always had about it, is what's the connection? So if anybody's listening and has that answer, Gail or anybody in the chat, that'd be cool to hear about. But please call in. I'm fascinated on anyone's takes on this. I do think it's really, really cool stuff. The architecture in particular, I just want to focus on that. Like that's something I recommend anyone listening deep dive in. But the chronology specifically is the thing that I bump hardest against. Like I don't believe necessarily that this happened like 90 years ago. You know, like that's a bridge too far. But I am open to the fact that there is a lost empire that might have bumped up against our current elites. Like there's a lot of theories that there's the elites, whatever you want to call them, versus the like Khazarians and stuff, and that's supposed to be another empire that's similar to this, that aren't part of this whatever bloodlines that are ruling the planet, and that were actively. I'm getting a little echo, so I'll hang up now. That's the cue for me to leave. But
okay, all right.
Great show, Mike. Awesome
I appreciate it, bro. Derek in Massachusetts, the Night Stalker. Appreciate the call. Great stuff as always.
Thanks,
all right, let's roll. Talking about the mud floods tonight. Talking about Tartaria. Talking about history. And is it like they tell us? Thank you so much to Jennifer and Derek. Fantastic calls so far. Looking to hear from you. Have you heard of the mud floods? Have you heard of Tartaria? Let's turn this music down just a little bit. And, well, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear from you. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. I don't know the answers, but we're going to keep asking questions. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, D-Live, YouTube, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're talking about Tartaria. The Mud Floods. Is history entirely accurate? And what is this all about? It's a rather new conspiracy theory by, well, I don't know, even Roswell standards, I guess you could say. But we're considering it tonight. As always, drinking some maybe juice, considering what the world we live in actually is. So if you want to be part of the show, I'd love to hear from you. Have you heard of Tartaria and the Mud Floods? Have you not? Where do you stand on history being written by the victors? And, well, here we are. One more time, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. And yeah, there's a lot here. It does go pretty much as deep as you want this conspiracy to go. And like I said, that's okay with me. It's just the larger in scope the story, the more difficult it is to tell, because especially live, because you end up leaving out critical details, like I've probably already done a dozen times. So you see that the more you kind of stretch it and turn it into more and more and more, the less of a good story it makes. And I'm not trying to tell a story. I'm just trying to make it coherent, is what I'm talking about here. So okay, so that's what we're talking about here. So let's go back to this. Let's just do a quick recap. Now this is from this is written pretty well. This is from secretenergy.com, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. So this ancient civilization supposedly has been around for a very long time, all right? And it's just recently been covered up in the last, let's say 100 to 400 years. Tartaria is what they call it, okay? And of course, the Tartars were actually the Uyghur Muslims that live in northern China, and they're being persecuted like crazy, like Night Stalker said there. And that's all accurate. That part is true. Those are the real Tartar, T-A-R people, at least according to the maps. But so why are they being persecuted over there? Why are they being shut down? Why are they being silenced? That's another thing to add to this question. But let's go here. This is from secretenergy.com. The synopsis of this goes something like this. An earth-shifting event has occurred in various parts of the world, leaving entire cultures in the wake of destruction. Yet the catastrophic changes seem to be historically ignored and seldom reported. Some of these events happening as recent as 400 years ago seem to line up with cultural prophecies, except the timelines are off by thousands of years. This would hint to a possible fact that many events touted to take place in antiquity may have been as recent as only a few hundred years ago. And so it's basically taken the entire timeline of history and just thrown it into a blender and saying that, we've been lied to about not just history, about a lot of things, about this free energy, about giants walking around the earth, about, right, a whole bunch of this stuff. And so again, like, I don't have a problem considering history's wrong. I think clearly history, like we keep saying, is written by the victors, and that's part of what this conspiracy is. But then also, if we're talking about free energy, don't forget Nikola Tesla was, infamously known for trying to create this free energy. And as Derek described, maybe he was rediscovering this from the ancient Tartars or Tartarian Empire. And so, he, of course, vanished, and his work vanished under suspicious circumstances. So, right, it's not too hard to kind of fill in some of the blanks and maybe say, okay, I could see something is here. But, all right, once you start kind of taking it in biblical terms and going all over the place with, the mud flood in particular, we're going to get to that in a sec. So again, World War II, again, they say that it was, perpetrated or used as a kind of a tipping point to bust up and smash and bomb and just destroy one of the final remnants of this Tartarian Empire. But on top of that, right, then we have this entire changing of the guard, if that's true, with a new civilization kind of stepping in and taking over with not free energy, right? There's no giants in this timeline. And so it seems like at that point, right from where we're starting here, about 100 to 400 years ago, that history just turned over on itself. And it was rewritten, of course, like we said, rewritten by the victors. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on this, on history, on the mud floods, on Tartaria, on giants, on free energy, any of this stuff? If you guys are interested in this, I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to go into this a little bit more with the free energy bit, but love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, troubledminds.org. Let's get back to this, all right? So it says, now this is again from secretenergy.com. And this is a pretty cool website, actually. It says, why would it be profitable, why would it be profitable for an entirely new world to be developed on top of an old one, with only a few chosen or initiated inhabitants having knowledge of the previous catastrophe? Is this the missing key that may patch up all the chronological gaps that we find in the already unbelievable historical timeline we've been fed? It says, Flat Earth British and Conspiracies Are Us seem to think so. Those are two other separate websites. You can check them out. They're right here on this page, by the way, which I'll link, and you guys can follow along if you prefer. There we go. All right. So I don't know. Like I said, what we do on this show, like I said, I don't have any of these answers. We do what's called drinking the maybe juice, and that just means that we get together and talk about the possibilities of this. So here we go. I linked that if you guys want to check it out. Definitely good stuff. But okay, this continues, right? It says, why is this important? Right here on secretenergy.com. And the imagery and profound amount of information surrounding this event are numerous, begging us to realize once and for all that it is entirely possible for hidden societies to alter the history of humanity within a very short period with little to any notice. How many more paradigm-shifting discoveries are we yet to uncover? And then it continues. Have you been following up on the Mud Flood stories? If so, there's some more links here. And there's your brief. There's the synopsis back to that and where this kind of begins and ends. I don't know that it ends though. It's one of those things where, like I said, I don't have a hard time believing that. I would think that the powers that be that have consolidated, tons and tons of money and tons of power. You could, even say like the Vatican, places like this, right? That have just basically were so powerful over such a long period of time that it wouldn't be difficult for them to kind of carry out a purge of sorts. Maybe not on people, but on information. Clearly, we know about the Vatican Library, how it's sort of been hugely protected in modern times, and lots of conspiracy theories about what's hiding in the Vatican archive. So I don't know. I think in particular that in and of itself, that's easy for me. The rest of this, once you start talking about free energy and some of the mud flood theories, I'm not so sure. That would be a hell of a flood, wouldn't it? Like of biblical proportions. And so that's what I'm going to kind of attribute this to, is that it was not just sort of maybe an engineered sort of destruction, as it were, of these old architecture, right? That is what we're talking about. Again, if you go back to like the 1800s, let's go back to this very first article. There are tons of examples here, right? Berlin, 1920. They got different pictures. They got Dresden, Warsaw, 1939 in the 30s. And you can see some of these. I'll make this full screen so you can see kind of what we're talking about here. But just some of the architecture of the, late 1800s, early 1900s, it was extremely just intricate and gorgeous and just so many things, right? It's like it's almost like at some point people just stopped caring about how buildings look, right? At least, monumental type, huge buildings. But let me make this larger so you can see exactly what we're talking about here. There you go. All right, that's better. So you see, right? You see just on the screen, there's some of these like, pavilions of the nations at the 1889 Exposition Universelle. You can see these things like the Fountain in Couton and the Central Dome of 1889. There's a ton of stuff here that it's just fabulous. Like you can... Like even like ancient Greek, even probably in its prime, had nothing on this stuff, right? And it's clearly taken from ancient Greece and some of these other places stylistically, but then also from places in the in Russia. You can see it. You can see this stuff. But this is what they're saying, right? So that in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they were building this type of architecture, right? You can see some of this stuff, the Barcelona International Exposition, the 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition at night. And this looks modern. This looks like postmodern even. And so when you look at some of this stuff, I think that that's what we're getting at. Is this actually architecture from a hidden civilization that has been demolished, that has been passed on, that has been turned into ash and dust and covered, literally not just covered up by history and by a new story, but covered up by literal mud and ash and dust. And that's what this is about. I don't know. What do you guys think with this? Like I said, taking your phone calls on this if you know anything about this theory. It's called the Tartaria mud flood theory. And well, okay. So then, all right. So let's get to the flood itself. All right. One more time. Phone number 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Let's see. All right. Okay. There we go. So there it is. But okay. So now let's talk about the flood in itself. Now, again, like I said, biblically speaking, the flood, right, was a great reset of such, right? It was, depending on the story, but from the Bible, right, we had the angels mating with humans. You get giants and all kinds of like problems and the fallen ones and all this stuff, and then God was like, reset time, right? And I grotesquely abbreviated that just for time. So if I got the details grotesquely wrong, well, now you know why. But flood comes, resets everything, and all that old stuff that was bad, right? All that old stuff that was awful is now new again. All right, humans are able to get together and create a new society, right? A new future without all that terrible stuff from the past. And so there you go. There's the brief version of that. But then I couldn't figure out. And I still don't have an answer to this because I digging a little bit deep on this and trying to figure it out. And like I said, the deeper you go, just the wider this story becomes. So I didn't want to go too far into this, but I did have a theory. I saw a theory, actually. It wasn't my theory. It's from somebody else on the internet, of course, which is, what we're doing. We're kind of looking at this and considering. But what about the mud floods? Like why is this called a mud flood theory? So not just was the ancient civilizations maybe destroyed, covered up, but there was some sort of actual flood that happened that covered up a ton of this stuff, which you can see in the architecture again, going back to the this original article here with what appears to be there it is, the Capitol building with like the sub basement and the basement and the sub basement here. So I don't know. I mean, this is the type of stuff that is they cite these photographs all over this as examples of, well, these were found and uncovered. These were not built by modern people. So I don't know. Like I said, there we go. But I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, sure, fine, got it. I get that part. But what about why is it covered in mud? That's the question I had, and I couldn't find a direct answer. There was one in particular that I'll look at from Reddit here. There's actually a subreddit called, wouldn't you know it, /Tartaria, and I'll link this if you guys want to check it out and find more information. There's, like I said, there's experts here that know quite a bit more about this than I do, so I'm going to link this, and I encourage you to go check it out. And like I said, I'm not selling this as the truth of truth or anything like that. I'm just, as always, drinking some maybe juice, considering what's going on with this stuff. Let's see. What's up? MK Ultra says the architecture style of today is called brutal, BRUTAL, and we don't build anything nearly as beautiful as they did before. And I think that's part of it too, right? I think that's for sure. It's just some of the craftsmanship kind of went out the window. But here we go. What was the cause of the mud flood? And this is 2 months ago on Tartaria, right? On the subreddit. And so I was like, okay, well, what is it? And here's 2 months ago. GeoSoul answered this: some form of vibration or oscillation that caused soil to liquefy. Perhaps we used to utilize sound technology, and the mud flood was the result of weaponry. And that's cool. I'm okay with that, right? If we're talking about, possibly weaponizing the earth and using it against the people of Earth, I think that's within what our government is probably looking to do now, right? With weather modification and things like this. Yeah, I don't know. HB, I see you there, man. If you know a ton about this, I'd love to hear from you. Like I said, we got some folks out there in the chat that this is not new to. So we do this together so we can talk about this stuff. But love to hear your take on this. 702-957-1037, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link and we'll put you on the show. But okay, so like I said, I don't know, a little bit more on this. There's some other ideas here that talking about the Great Western, the Great Flood caused it, and I suspect that if it was the Earth's water generated at its core first burst through the crust onto the surface. But again, the timelines are questionable. This is from Reddit again by somebody named Ether Orr. And just how fast is the Earth growing anyhow? If this is all new to you, you might enjoy these playlists. They've got the Growing Earth. They've got the Growing Earth Yuga Cycle Sirius B connection. And you see, like this. So not only do we get possibly like flat Earth, we get right now we're like the growing Earth. Now we're like the flood not coming from the sky and some sort of rain, like God bringing about the flood from the sky. This is the flood from bursting through the ground and the earth. So I don't know. This is the type of thing where I start reading this and I'm like, okay, right? I mean, at some point it kind of stretches just a little bit too much further than you're willing to go. And I think that's what conspiracy theories are about, right? Maybe it's like kind of testing your believability factor. I don't know. Anyway, if you guys are into this, like I said, we're talking about the mud flood. Yeah, that's right. Here's some architecture examples that you can see. And yeah, the Lost Empire of Tartaria. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Let's read some of the chat. We got looks like HB knows a ton about this. Populations of 10,000 people with horse and buggy made artificial coastlines 20 feet deep in the water. LOL, check out Cedar Point. Okay, all right, and it continues. Stories of city foundings all around the world failing to make a lick of sense, that in 1800s, cities with populations of 10,000 or so built cities to accommodate millions in just a few years. All right, that's cool. Like I said, you seem to know a ton about this. I'd love to hear from you, HB. Give us a call, my man. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not trying to tell anybody this is true. I just barely heard about this from Clayton. I promised him we would do a show on this by the end of October, and here we are. And I did. Like I said, I've been reading about this here and there, and it just seems to get bigger and bigger. This story larger and larger. The cover up larger and larger. And I don't know. Please link that website. You got it. I'll link the website. Here you go. So that's the thing. I don't know. What do you guys believe? Like I said, I'm not trying to make you believe this is true or false, but consider it. Just consider it. I think that's part of why we do this and kind of get together and kick these ideas back and forth. Because just because you're a quote conspiracy theorist, it does not mean that you have to have to believe all the things. So it's okay. It's all good. It's all good. Let's see. Okay, just catching up on the chat. What's up, Enlightened Mank? It says Paul Cook YouTube channel has got some videos of man-made coastlines made of red brick. Okay, actually, let's do this real quick. So this is the story real fast from an individual by the name of Lava Canyon, and this is how this story began. So let me just play a smidge of this as we truck on into the night. Here we go.
Across a pretty cool theory. The theory is that many buildings used today could have been built by another oldish civilization and were adopted or stolen, then repaired. What are some of these buildings? The White House, the Salt Lake Temple, the US state capitals, many of the St. Petersburg's buildings in Russia, and the Bund area in Shanghai, China. Just to name a few. However, what exactly isn't inherited does vary from theorist to theorist. But yes, these do spread throughout the world. It is great having you choose my videos to watch, and I hope you enjoy them. So why is this believed? The main oddity pushing forward this theory is how many of these buildings seem to be sunken into the ground. Let's look at the Salt Lake Temple. It's a great big building in Utah of the United States, and is said to have started construction from 1847 to 1893. This place had some touch-ups for the surrounding ground of the temple in 1963, revealing a lot of structure underneath the building. It looks to continue, maybe even having another entranceway. The windows also seem to continue, and perhaps they were originally meant to be used as such. Once the touch-ups finished, the area was buried back again. Let's look at some of the buildings in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg of Russia was founded during 1703 and named after Peter the Great. Many of these buildings do look to cut things off into the ground, like potential window holes or entrances. These ground-level designs seem strange nonetheless. This is where the term mud flood comes in, as this is a theory of what happened to these buildings. Worldwide structures being flooded and buried during the Middle Ages, the general idea being around 1600 AD. Could have been a cataclysm or a result of war, but nonetheless imply these buildings were made before it happened, which would go against the official construction dates of these buildings.
Okay, so war itself or some sort of a cataclysm possibly caused this. Again, back to that idea on, on Reddit, like they said, maybe there was some sort of oscillation that liquefied the sand, something like this, maybe some sort of like advanced, maybe sound weapon, Havana syndrome, anyone on a worldwide level. But something like this, right? I don't know. There you go. HB says, this is the topic of topics. All right, well, I'm glad we could touch on it. Like I said, my only regret here is I don't know a ton more about this. And so looking to hear from you guys. What do you think about this? Like I said, if you're super into this, like I said, this conspiracy goes super deep. This rabbit hole goes so deep. It's one of those ones where everything starts to become connected into it. And I'm not sold on all the connections. But that doesn't mean I'm right about anything. So I'm going to keep thinking about it. I'm going to keep doing this and considering these possibilities. But there's a ton here. There's a ton. You can kind of weave in a bunch of history. You can weave in a bunch of like the biblical stuff, like the biblical flood, and again, like the old great resets. And those types of things to me, like I said, are not necessarily out of the realm of ridiculous because, well, I mean, we've had tons of great resets, haven't we? You can kind of trace back. We're trying to have one now, aren't we? Yeah, I have no idea. You guys tell me. All right, Fred, have a good night. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. I'm going to keep an eye on this as this thing develops. Like I said, it's a brand new theory to me. Like I only heard about this from Clayton on Rockfin. So Clayton, if you're out there, shout out to you, my brother. Thanks for pointing this out. And I'll learn more about this. We'll talk about this in the future if you guys are into this type of thing. And that's what this show's about, isn't it? It's about being in the right place and considering all the crazy stuff out there. So here's just another one. Add it to the quiver. Another stripe to the tiger, right? Okay, so that's what's up. That's what's going on. What do you guys believe in this, and do you think it's real? And if you don't, why not? I think that's another important part of this theory here is if you don't believe it, why not, right? It's like you got to be able to take both and consider both possibilities as being true, right? Or at least remotely true. And so that's what Troubled Minds is really about, kind of kicking them together and making a coherent something or other, having a coherent conversation. But like I said, when it goes so deep, it's difficult because you end up telling this long story, adding all these elements and parts into it, and it just becomes kind of rambly, too much rambly, not enough story becomes, right? When you start connecting everything into it, it becomes just liquefied sand, if you know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Maybe we'll do a mud fossil show next month. Yeah, there you go. There's a new one as well to me. So, okay. So as we finish this up, you guys know the drill. We're going to get together and do this show again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And we consider all the things. And like I said, you guys are all invited on this show. I'd love to have you on the show. And we're taking all requests as well. So give us a request if you want to hear about a particular topic that we haven't really discussed yet, we haven't considered yet, or if you want to revisit something like maybe this wasn't enough. Maybe this is just a primer for more Tartaria in the future and the mud floods. That's okay. Like I said, we're going to get started and just continue thinking about this and considering the possibilities, and that's what we're all about. So as we finish up, you guys know the drill. If you're we're going to go one more hour. We're not done yet, but if you want to be basically here's where this goes. We're going to do a third hour of Troubled Minds, and that's what's up. If you're listening to us on the Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void, and if you're listening on any other platform, including the podcast platform, let me turn this down because apparently now my audio is all jacked up. So if you're listening to us on the podcast platform or anywhere else, stay tuned for a third hour of Troubled Minds. Once again, if you're listening to us on Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop and Lighting the Void. And at the end, I don't know. I don't have a conclusion here because there's a lot. And there's a lot more. We've barely touched on this. So we're going to keep considering this and talking about this and keep an eye on it as it develops, as these theories kind of keep coming out. And love to hear from you. You guys know the drill. So as we finish, we'll be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific for more Troubled Minds. And be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. All right, guys, 2-minute break. We got more Troubled Minds coming up. If you're interested, we're taking phone calls. And like I said, I don't know a ton about this, so clearly that part is obvious. But it doesn't much matter, right? You can kind of kick it off and start us somewhere. And if you're interested or know about this, have some theories, we're still talking about Tartaria and the mud floods and this whole bit. And we'll play the rest of this YouTube video. It's pretty short. But again, I'd love to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on this? Is it a bunch of BS? Is there something else? What do you think? That's the deal. So if you want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link, get in here, and we'll put you on the show. But right now, 2-minute break. 2-minute break. More Troubled Minds coming up. Go hit the restroom, top off your drink, put the kids to bed, whatever you have to do. 2 minutes. More Troubled Minds coming up. Be right back. All right, welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are still talking about the mud flood theory, Tartaria, and of course, old school Tartary as it was on the old maps, Tartary. And what is this all about? Do you believe this to be true? Do you like to consider the possibilities here? Or do you think it's a bunch of hogwash? I think that's the thing, is that, you got to be able to consider all the things as being possible, because once you can't, I think you start limiting yourself. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So got a little bit more of a YouTube video we'll play regarding this, which, by the way, it's really short. Let's see, this YouTube video is done by a guy named, what is this? He's called Lava Canyon. And I linked it already. I'll link it again. But it's a real short 5-minute video. And he's got, a ton of views. He's got 165,000 views in the past year just on this short Tartaria theory, the mud flood. So I don't know, right? Clearly people are interested. They're into the idea. I think that's the interesting part here, is that it seems to be growing. It seems to be one of those situations where it gets larger and larger, and they talk about this more and more. And I don't think it's gonna stop. But if it gets to the point of, like, I don't know, flat Earth and all the rest of this, I'm not so sure, right? Like, you're not sure where to draw the line, because it really starts to cloud reality in general. So I don't know. But let's go. We're still taking your phone calls if you want to be part of the show. And by the way, clouding reality in general is fine by me. It's your reality after all. It's not mine. And mine is mine. Yours is yours. But I think that, too far down rabbit holes, in my opinion, is also bad. You got to have, like I said, you got to have a rope and an anchor to get yourself back up. Because sometimes once you go down, it's right. It kind of changes the paradigm of just the way the world works in your mind and your brain. So yeah, you kind of got to have an anchor here. We got looks like we got both Rohan and Kelly on. So yeah, welcome to the show, guys. Rohan, I saw you there first. Let's go, Rohan, and then we'll mix Kelly in. Test 1 2. You there, buddy? Anybody? Test 1 2. Rohan, and then we'll mix Kelly in. What's up, Rohan? Test 1 2. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show, man. I sound great through your system now. And then we'll mix Kelly in. What's up, bro? Test 1 2. Now you're coming through again. Is that me? Oh, it might be
sorry.
me. No, you're good. Okay, all right.
I sent it the wrong way.
That's all right. Welcome to the show. What's up, Rohan? How are you? Hello. I hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm good, yeah. So I heard myself back as well. You did it to me. Damn you.
Is it done? Is it fixed?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, all good. Nice. Damn routine. You know how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. You click the wrong button, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. All right, so I think all my buttons are clicked appropriately.
Jump on Kellen.
All right. So what are your thoughts on this mud flood stuff? What the hell's going on with this, man? Hello. All right, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with Rohan's stuff here, but looks like he's going to reboot. All right, Kelly, what's up, brother? Whenever you're ready. Rohan was waiting first, so I wanted to cut to him. He was waiting longest, but welcome to the show. What's up, my man? How are you tonight?
All right. How you guys doing, man?
Okay. This one's a little over my head, the Tartaria and mud floods, but, you don't have to know it all to talk about it, do you?
No, we can. There's a lot of people fill in the parts.
Absolutely.
The missing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this? Actually, go ahead and give us your thought, and then we'll get Rohan on and test his audio in just a sec here. But what are your thoughts? Have you heard of this first? Have you heard of this mud flood Tartaria theory?
I mean, I did briefly running across some of this stuff. But again, it was for me, for some of the stuff that I researched too, because it was kind of like it brought me to where even like what Jennifer was talking about earlier, where the Sumerian aspect, right? So there's a group that was that history has noted that it was like a breakaway from the Sumerians, because Sumerian was all through upper. It was like through. Obviously we know it was Iraq, but it was up through Turkey. Then you go up through Europe, and then Western Asia, which is Eastern Europe. Through that area. But with I'll do some connections here in a little bit. But what's interesting for me is like they were talking about that breakaway from Sumerians. There were like nomadic tribes, and they were called Samartarians. SAM or SARMATIAN.
Oh, like a good Samaritan. Like a good Samaritan. Yeah. They're called, and then they claimed that there was a break off, which is, there's got scientific fact of some of these, nomadic tribes, they just kind of like left the area when, there was exchange from like Babylonia, Sumeria. There was the time changes, even religions and stuff. But what's interesting, for that, to all nomadic tribes were, and you were talking about like with giants and stuff like that. If you go up to European, through those nomadic tribes up to like, Western Asia, right? Through like where Russia is now. Talked about this before, was called the giants there were, that was actually the world renowned giants were they were called the Kurgans, right? The Kurgan, known as the Kurgan Giants. And, what's interesting was like through there was, before I get to that part, I just want to say that, like, there's been other people that talk about, a worldwide civilization, that was very technology, and it only shows through, like, some of the architects that you're talking about, not only through, like, what you've shown, but even older, And, I don't know, that tech is that you can see which is left in stone, you know what I mean? So that's where it's pretty crazy. And there's some stuff that you can actually verify that, some of the stuff that's worldwide, right? Like they're saying like burials, like mummifications, building structures and stuff like that, But what's interesting too, like the whole Sumerian connection to the South America connection was where there was a bowl that they found down in Bolivia. Right, it was called the Magna Fuenta Bowl, and in the inside of that bowl, it looks like a cuneiform, or looks like Sumerian writing, and it just talks about, and on the bowl, both sides is like one for male and one for female, and it's almost talking like about creation and stuff. But I don't know, man. For me, like the whole. Like what I tripped out, what kind of confused me when I first started into that, were like, the whole mud flood, where the mud flood part came in, But then I, when listening to some of the stuff and then kind of like diving into it again, where you're talking about like how they said it's a conspiracy where it could be like buried from like wars and stuff all through Europe and stuff, like Russia or like, Western Russia and stuff like that. That could be, because, that does happen through wars, They're always trying to cover up some kind of history. Yeah, I think that's for sure. The great attrition that humans are really perpetrating on the earth is war. I mean, can you imagine if there was no war, how much amazing stuff would be left on the earth? It would be incredible. So I think for sure there's no doubt about that whatsoever. But considering like the flood itself, like the mud flood is again the thing that kind of gets me a little bit, because it would have to be like in a worldwide basis, right? It'd have to be huge here. Always great stuff. I appreciate it, Kelly. So what's your next thought? Let's test Rohan real quick and get him in the mix. Let's make sure his audio is working, and then we'll keep on. Anything? I don't want to cut you off and get your train of thought. So if you want to finish your point, go ahead. But let's get Rohan back in the mix here.
Oh no, go ahead with him because I know he's over in a different time zone. Let him jump in because I already got some notes that I can already fix that too. So you can go ahead and
okay. We can all do it. We don't have to just code.
Oh, no, you carry on. I got it. It's just me doing technical stuff. Sorry about that.
All right.
No, you carry on.
Welcome to the show.
Carry on, Keller. Cheers, buddy. Cheers. I am just Rose Bart's. Not really. I'm the real one.
Okay. All right.
You carry on, Keller. Carry on.
Okay. So, again, the connections from, where they talk about worldwide, right? And sometimes, for me, like I was wanted to talk about was the connections, right? So we talk about like that weird bowl that was called the Magna Puenta bowl, which was, has Sumerian writing, which was found in Bolivia. Now, some of the old, stories when they were talking to some of the people that, the natives that were from Bolivia, when they were talking about these people that came on these reed boats, right? And these big giant reed boats. And they were the ones that had the elongated skulls. And that's where the guy named Brian Forrester, he lives down in Peru. And that's where they landed at in Peru, right? And what's interesting is those giant reed boats are the exact same type reed boats. I'm talking like same design, how to make it, how to fold the reeds and everything. And those are the same reed boats that you find like in that they use on the Nile through Egypt all the way, through because the Nile River was pretty long, but like all through there, the whole Nile River, they use the same type reed boat, the whole structure and everything, right?
Yeah. So just I know a little bit about this. Thor Heyerdahl, he actually did the voyage was called the Kon-Tiki voyage, right? And so he tried to prove that this was the case, that the Africans could actually get to North America or South America in the old days with just a reed boat. And so he found supposedly the way that they created exactly what you're talking about, and was able to cross-navigate from Africa to South America. The first time failed, I believe, but the second time I think they succeeded. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Thor Heyerdahl, and I think it's the Kon-Tiki voyage is what they called that. But yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, that's the one that they were showing, right? But for me, when I look at some of this stuff, it's not only through reed boats, right? That they, people like that could have snuck through here, because the reason why I'm bringing that up, all right, and this is a study through Brian Forrester study, right? Well, the elongated skull things, right? But so that whole Samaritans, right, that were from, the Sumerians, right, through Iraq, right? Those nomadic tribes, the Kurgan Giants that were through there, they were actually through the Western and Caspian Sea, which is in Western Russia, right? Well, the biggest collection of elongated skulls that they found is only is Peru, right? But this next biggest area is from the Black Sea, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. That's where the second largest amount of like elongated skulls. And these elongated skulls, we're not talking about like, yes, there's been some cultures that have head binding. These are a whole different type of skulls, right? We're talking about the structures of the lines in the skull, right? These skulls only have two. But not only that, where the magna, where the spinal cord comes out from the skull, right? The hole from that is moved back only because, and that's a DNA structure, right? That wasn't due to head binding. That is something that was like that they were born like that, right? So, I mean, you have all these weird connections where like a world connection was, but if you look at other cultures, right, they're not talking about like, they're not only talking about like maybe reed boats once in a while. I don't believe that I mean, yes, that that'd be one way to do it, but like have massive culture and everything else coming across I would say that that's where I'm going with this Anunnaki part, where all these cultures talk about their gods are coming down from the sky, right? And to have that type of that culture, because when they talked about in the Sumerian text through the Zechariah Extension books, he talked about like when one of the Anunnaki, which is Nigazita, right? He went down to South America, and down there it was like a lost civilization where the Aztecs and the Mayans, they had, they believed in the old ways. They had the old technology and everything, where they first taught humans, and that was kind of surprising to them that they were still surviving like that. That was one story, but the other one for me is, some of the ones that they had down there is just like that. Is another one of the buildings, right? Let's talk about buildings. For me, the worldwide thing for me is just the way they're building. I'm talking structurally too. What they used to call the clamps, the clamps where it looks like eye clamps, where they put these buildings together. I mean, there's no mortar in between these things either. These things are like, cut like the laser sharp stuff with kind of like, you find down in Bolivia and Peru. Like, what is it? I don't know, Punapunku, stuff like that. I mean, it's all in the structure. You could see that stuff that it was, but those like eyelets too, those clamps, for me, why would everybody do it, worldwide? You find that worldwide. So it's interesting that people say that there was a world civilization. Yeah, because it was all connected at one time. For me, anyway. That's why I always say when I can always go back to the ancient stories of the Sumerians, because, of their writing of what they left behind. And it's interesting, even, that's where the whole biblical thing, it's the same thing that was, even older, which is the 7 tablets of creation. So.
Fantastic stuff. And I agree with you. And I was actually going to bring up a little bit earlier the pyramids as well. Like if we're talking about these civilizations that supposedly are separated through thousands of years in time, somehow have very similar structures like they kind of shouldn't, right? That kind of thing really fits into this as well. Let's get great stuff, Kelly. Thank you. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, so no, not running you off. But let's get Rohan into this mix. What do you think, Rohan? Good stuff from Kelly. What are your thoughts on the Mud Floods and all the rest?
Oh, yeah, I've got a few notes, actually, but I'm just going to bump off the back of a mention Pumpka, Kelly, because I don't know if you know that I'm into these remote viewers. Farsight Institute, they've been doing it a long time. I talk about remote viewing sometimes. They remote viewed Pumpka, and they said those strange-shaped blocks were being created. They had a fabricating machine, just knocking them out, popping them out. Boom, 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 boom. Do you know what I mean? So, I can't prove it, but do you know what I'm saying? It gets me wondering. So then I think, funnily enough, Michael, I did a show today, so I got my new podcast, did a show today. Now, it's not about this, but I said at the start of the show that ancient civilizations permeate everything. In everything in politics. It might not seem like it. Everything in politics, everything in your history, every single thing. You go around these conspiracy routes, it always gets into somehow ancient civilizations. Okay, and my show today was basically, it was giving a bit of a big up for Graham Hancock, Göbekli Tepe, and there's a new sister site been announced just about a month ago, Karahan Tepe. So they did a quick overview on this, but in that story, it ties in with this as it happens, because you've got, look, to double back, in Micronesia there's a place called Nanmadal. That's a man-made island. Okay, in the Indian epics they talked about Rama had these ape men, these monkey men, Hanuman men. They were built in Adam's Bridge, and they found that. They're the Giant's Causeway. There's one in Ireland, there's one in Scotland. They're supposed to have been linked at one time, a bridge made by giants or whatever, okay? Now, in this show I've done today about Göbekli Tepe, we're talking Anatolia. And Vicky mentioned she had a Turkish boyfriend or husband that used to talk about Tartaria in Turkey. Well, Göbekli Tepe, turns out, that's the oldest megalith known now. Now, the reason when we're talking mud floods, this is what we're talking. We're talking the Younger Dryas period. Okay, end of the Pleistocene era. Yeah, there's evidence now. We know now that the northern hemisphere was hit by a massive asteroid. We know this, okay, because the global temperatures are dropping in the northern hemisphere. Okay, we know this. It's scientifically shown. Okay, so what's happened is we have had a massive flood, and this massive flood perfectly coincides with Plato saying when Atlantis went underwater. Exactly. Now, people argue that Plato was probably making it up, but he specifically said this is a true story. And even if he was making it up, he ate the exact time, about 11,500 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? So it looks like, yeah, there was a massive deluge. Do you know what I mean? And when I think back to these reset ideas, well, we see it in the Matrix, they keep continuously resetting Zion, don't they? Do you know what I mean? And then somebody mentioned, I think the Night Stalker mentioned that could it be that some, incoming elites, whatever, some elites want to take over the old elites or the whatever. Well, I thought that was interesting as well, because I've heard that about the Rothschilds. I don't know where it was. I think it might be to do with the box saga, but I heard that they just basically supplanted a very, very wealthy ancient family and just stole their identity, stole the wealth. Do you know what I mean? And went in a different direction. Do you know what I'm saying? And then when I think to somebody mentioning the red bricks, I'd never heard of that, but it still raised a flag in my head, Michael. I thought, where am I thinking? Why does red bricks stick in my head? And then I think, hang on a minute, Game of Thrones, the Red Keep, King's Landing, that was the residence of the Andals and the First Men. And I think, what are they? Are they messing with us? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when I look at seen the TV show Vikings, seen Vikings? You watched the TV show Vikings? I didn't know. I had no idea.
Just the first season.
Dude, they meet the Russians when they're looking for land, aren't they? Yeah, Vikings are looking for land. They're struggling to farm. It's harsh. It's tough. So they find England. They come try and invade. Yeah, but when they found Russia, there was no invading Russia. I didn't know anything about Russian history. It occurred to me after watching Vikings, I only know about the CCP and that's it. But when the Vikings in the TV show, and it's supposed to be all historically accurate, when they found the Russians had a well-established empire. They were living in the lap of luxury. And so when they found the Russians, it was like, okay, there's no way we're invading these guys. We can only trade and get information and stuff from them. And that's where the Vikings got a lot of their information about the rest of the world. And you think, hang on a minute, in the TV show, it's showing the Vikings are trying to do the conquesty thing. They're trying to build themselves up. They're doing well. But Russia's already laughing. They're doing great. They've got jacuzzis out in the snow. Do you know what I mean? They're in the lap of luxury. And I'm thinking, but there's no context for it. And I'm thinking, where the hell did that come from? But now it makes sense all of a sudden.
Yeah, for sure. Kelly, go ahead, my man. Thoughts on any of the rest of that, plus whatever you got. You guys are the best, man. Saving my ass again. Thank you guys to all the amazing calls tonight. Thank you guys for both jumping in here. I think interesting that when you look far enough back, right, you kind of see the future, don't you? It's weird.
Yeah, just real quick, what he was talking about. What's interesting too is like more and more. And more, it's weird. I'm finding more research and everything they're talking about ancient. There's but it's been buried. It's been like everything else is, where it's like history is always, I wouldn't say buried, but they say buried, but it's like, or not talked about where, it's been hidden. But yeah, all through Europe, through what is it, Scotland and Ireland, they had some weird. I mean, the whole thing with too, but all through that area too is known as, they had giants and stuff as well. All through that whole area, those upper areas like that, Iceland and stuff like that too. You have all these ancient stories, That's what's pretty incredible. I talked about that one in the show too, the ones from Russia, right? But for me too, is another thing I wanted to add was about I know there's been some places where they talk about the flood, right? But I noticed some stuff like Göbekli Tepe. To me, that doesn't look like it was buried from a flood. It was more like somebody buried it. More like they were buried. Man buried them instead of it was done with the flood. But who knows?
That's correct. Yeah. No, they did. They know it was definitely buried. And the funny thing, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I decided to look into the translations of Turkish and Kurdish. And one of them, I struggled to find the Kurdish translation for one of them, but I did find that in Turkish, mir meant ear, and Mirazan was the Kurdish word. I couldn't find a reason for it, but in Turkish, Mirasan means kingdom. So I thought, you think about it, it's like a buried kingdom or a dead king. Do you know what I mean? So I thought, weird. And I'll just a little spoiler alert on the show. There was another word that they used for Göbekli Tepe in Kurdish, and it was evil. So I don't know if that counts for anything.
Evil. Why not, right? Right.
Yeah, you know what interesting about that too, with talk about Göbekli Tepe, there's the Aboriginals, right? They were some of the ancient, that they were talking with the ancestors, the older folks from but they have, they were doing a ceremony, but they how they dress, they write stuff on themselves. Where there was a symbol that he wrote, that he drew on his chest, right? It's like a horseshoe. One was upside down, the other one was like a circle or a square. But it was the exact same symbol that they found on Göbekli Tepe on one of the statues on there. So why I kind of bring that up, I go back to Zachariah Stinchin's book, right? That's called the Lost Book of Enki. In there, they talk about, again, about like these different regions of the earth, right? But they were in that book, they were talking about splitting up the earth in regions for the families, right? And it was in the 12th tablet, right? And there was 4 regions, 3 of them for man, 1 for Anunnaki. The first one was the Eden lands were the older ones. That one's for like Enlil and his families, right? Second region was between the 2 narrows. In between the 2 narrows, that was Enki's family, and then the third was not to be mingling with the other 2, and it was in a distant land, and that was for their sister Inanna. And the fourth one was just for the Anunnaki, right? And they call it the Peninsula of the Place of the Chariots, where they park their their UFOs or their flying saucers or whatever they want to call them, But that's what's pretty interesting, like how some places where they just split it all up, and I don't know, man. Like the whole missing land mass between, I can't remember what they called it, between India and Australia, right? There was started with a K.
Mu.
Was it Mu? I thought it started with a K.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I thought it was Mu. There was Pangea, and there was Mu, and I got no.
There was the people of Hiva as well. I don't know if they had a land mass, but I know the people of Hiva, I'd never hear any. The only reason I even know about them is from a cartoon when I was a kid. Do you know what I mean? Never hear about it.
From a cartoon.
Yeah. It's an amazing. It's Mr. Cities of Gold. It goes into the Olmecs, and the Olmecs are aliens, and you think, what? Looking in it now,
Right, for sure. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kelly.
What's interesting too, like all through, I want to go back to Turkey, right? Well, you have those places that are buried, but they also at the same time they also had like in the Cappadocia area, right? They had Derinkuyu where all those caves and stuff were, and then they held thousands of people. Why were they, building stuff underground? So is it wars, galactic wars? Like the Sumerian Anunnaki stories are true? Like, it's weird, man. For me, I just put that stuff together, like even in the Indus Valley, right, all through Pakistan down into India, right, where you find or even in the desert sands in Egypt, right, where you have that's like vitrified glass. It's like carpeted, all the sand, the top layers of sand is vitrified, it's glass, right? It's crazy, man. To find out that, yeah, I mean, if you have something like that, like if the whole Anunnaki story is true, they had their spacecraft, they're flying around everywhere, creating their civilizations, handing out these what they call MEs, which created civilizations, right? But they're all teaching the same shit. The way they're building, that's what I'm saying. People overlook that, those clamps I'm talking about, how they put, they connect these rocks together and stuff. Because, over time, yes, they know they had earthquakes and they didn't want to have movements on that stuff. But you can, even in some of those ones they found in Egypt, they're even inside the glass, inside the museums where they took them out, and you could actually see them. They got stuff written on them and stuff. It's pretty interesting, man. For me, that's almost like a given. That there was either one, there was the same builders or the same teachers that taught everybody how to build the same way, use the same clamps for the same reason.
For sure, 100%. Hey guys, we got a phone call here. You guys mind hanging around? I'll take this phone call real quick. It's Phil in Oregon.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go to our good buddy Phil in Oregon. Welcome to the show, my friend. You're on with Mike, Kelly, and Rohan. Go right ahead, sir.
Hey, hello, everybody.
Hello.
One thing I would like. Well, you remember your original logo for your show?
I'm not sure what you mean, but go ahead. Wardrobe?
Well, I clicked and looked at you on YouTube is because you had the alien profile, not the straight-on look at the alien, but the alien profile. I thought that was kind of hilarious.
Oh,
clicked
right.
on it, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yep, the old school one. Yeah.
Yeah. If you put that on a sweatshirt, I'll buy $5. I tell you what.
Okay. Hey. Actually, do me a favor. You're cutting in and out. Can you get closer to your phone or your mic, or take it off speaker? Whatever's going on. It's hard to hear you coming through.
Yeah. Let me try that.
Yeah, if you're on speaker, it really screws with the technology because it's not the best, right? We don't have like a super high tech.
Sorry about that.
Okay, perfect. Much better.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Go right ahead. Could barely hear you before. Now you're loud and clear.
What the heck?
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Hey, welcome to my life, man. I'm constantly pushing buttons, going, why doesn't this shit work?
Thank you very much. Yeah, that wasn't working. So, yeah, that would be cool. I would like to have that. But back to the topic which was mud flood. They call it mud flood, but all those beautiful buildings with their architecture, they used to call it destroyed by fire. And there's an amazing amount of fires that happened during a short period of time. And if you look at the pictures of the fires, it's like more than a fire almost. Everything's just like leveled. Pretty horrifying.
Okay, so like almost like it was intentional, like they're trying to erase these from history through other means.
Well, you got to admit it was beautiful architecture.
For sure. Definitely.
And that seems to be mainly the only thing that was destroyed. I'm just saying. And doesn't exactly look like a fire, but hey, let's call it a mud flood.
Sure. Well, okay. I think part of it too is not just that in particular. It's also the other bit with the basements and sub basements and them kind of excavating things and finding stuff happening down below the ground, right? Yeah. So have you heard of this before? This mud flood theory? Is this the first time, or you heard this before?
Yeah, I've been following it. I've been following it for quite a while, and well, that's the part that I picked out of the whole thing is that a lot of cities burnt in the late 1800s, and that's where all the architecture went. And when you go and look at what happened, it's pretty devastating. Whatever happened, there's pictures of it,
Yeah, I mean, all the world wars and all, like, literally, if you go take from like 1900 to the year 2000, like
Chicago fire.
Yeah, just those 100 years, man.
Chicago fire, San Francisco fire, St. Louis,
1908. Yeah.
A lot of places.
Yeah, agreed. That's kind of what I'm saying here. Is that was it really? Did everybody just try and start fires, or was there something else to this? I don't know.
Well, right, but it's weird. The buildings destroyed by fire be attributed to a flood. kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah, sure. And then one other thing I would like to mention is on the Tesla thing. You know, you drive a part of the American telegraph system used to be powered by, you drive two dissimilar metals into the ground, and then they conduct electricity to power the telegraph. Right? So there's that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I didn't, Michael Cremo, the Forbidden Archaeology, I think is what the topic's called.
Yeah. Forbidden Archaeology. Exactly.
So,
yep.
Yeah. Modern tools buried in coal. Anyways, I just thought I'd give my 2 cents, and sorry about the phone mishap there.
You're okay. Just, speakerphone's bad for this format. I appreciate the phone call. Everybody follow our good buddy Phil here. He's got a YouTube channel. If you scroll down to the bottom of our YouTube channel, he's linked. Find Phil. Go tell Phil Michael Strange sent you. Go say hi and go watch his videos. Appreciate the call, my friend. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Peace out.
Thanks a lot. Have a great night. There you go. So that's Phil. His name is Phil Christophers. Scroll down. You can find his channel there. All right, gentlemen, anything on that? Let's go back to Kelly, if you're there. Trying not to step on my dog here. She's underneath me with the squeaky toy. Can you guys hear the squeaky toy?
Nah, I really don't. I don't know, man. Sometimes I wonder about that shit too. You know? Like calling it one thing, which is something else. You know, the archaeology, all that stuff is being hidden, man. It's either being hidden, destroyed, or, covered upon. Like, what I don't like is, I'm going to bring something into is, the Catholic religion. Like, some of these older stuff, when they did their whole crusade around the world, where, if they didn't either burn it down or destroy it, they built a church on top of it, to claim it that it's, part of owned by the church now. And that's worldwide, too. That's, they built that stuff all the time over ancient sites. They just put an old church up there.
Mm-hmm. And they always fob it off, don't they, as saying, it just makes more sense to build on the foundations of other people to save you time. But like I say, maybe it's covering stuff up. And I've heard archaeologists brazen say we're told we're not allowed to dig below a certain level. So we ask why, and they say, because there was nothing there before that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a whole big cover-up, too. Yeah, because they don't even want you to dig underneath there because they're claiming that, that land for the church, which is, I call BS because, if that's ancient archaeology, we should be able to go underneath there and check what's going on.
Yeah, there should be UNESCO sites. They should be protected sites, really, by rights. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you protected all those sites, you'd run out of land.
This is true. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Ron.
Nowhere for us to live. You'd have to kick us out to orbit like Elysium, right?
Well, I mean, the one big one that really got me was on the picture of the White House that you had there. When they were doing the renovations or something. And the fact that they had columns that were below grade.
Yeah. Right.
The central entrance of the whole thing and stuff like that. You got the Greek Revival on one side and you got the Gothic on the other side, and then you got the rotunda in the center. But the fact that the staircase kind of actually looked like it went down around all of that excavation site, and then there was like a door that was ready for someone who was, I don't know, 12 to 15 feet tall.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I work on old buildings all the time, and one of the things that we noticed today, we're replacing the baseboards in the building. It's part of the stupid contract to make money for all the things that really start serious arguments amongst people. And I noticed that at some point in time in that building, they made all the floors from about 18 feet. They shrunk the floors to add an extra floor at some point in time. So instead of them being 18 feet. They were 12. We got an extra floor out of the building on 4 floors. It was a 3-story building when they built it, and it was a 4-story building when they remodeled it. And it was like, this is a really old building. You know, it's the alleyway is part of the canalway that used to be in the city. That the reason why it's not there is because there was a flood. And instead of digging the mud out of it and the silt and the coal ash and all the garbage and everything else that was going on in those places, that they just poured concrete over the staircase that went down into the basement and called it good. You know, hey, we've only got one basement now. You know, we went to go put a pizza oven in one of the buildings so that the kids broke through the concrete on the floor, and when they did, they lost the post hole diggers. They dropped all the way through the floor.
What the hell?
Because a lot of times the old buildings had 2 basements. A lot of the reason was for heating. It was architectural. If you have 2 basement down, you have that cool air in the summer and you have the warm air in the winter. Where do you build your fire? You build your fire in the bottom. If it's starting to get too cold down there, you build a fire and it'll radiate through the whole building, through passageways and airways and, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, if you really wanted to get into that, that's not hard. You know, the way they used to build buildings like that. You know, almost all buildings back even in New York City and everything else like that all had chaseways in the bathrooms with windows in them that you could open up to get heat out of the basement or cool air out of the basement, and you would blow it out your windows or suck it in depending on the season. You know, they built buildings back then without the need for electricity. You didn't need the heat. You didn't need the air conditioners because the building lived and breathed, not necessarily in that matter, but on its own.
Right. That makes sense. Good stuff. And look, this is amazing because this is why we get together and do this. All people from all walks of life, right? Everybody knows all kinds of different things. Well, I've never built a building, but Jay has a lot. A lot. So it's good.
More than a couple.
It's fantastic, man. And not only that, you're renovating old ones, so you know, right? I don't mean like the great old ones. You're not renovating those, but you know, the old ones. And
there was that one great old one that I did try.
the great old one, and it wrapped his tentacles around you. It was a wrap after that. I don't know, gentlemen. What do you think about this, Rohan? Wacky stuff.
I mean, well, I'm on with that. I saw that. I can't find it now, actually. That massive doorway, 2 stories high. Yeah, it's crazy. In fact, I took a picture of an old building around the corner from me, and like, there's a proper old doorway. It's about 7 foot high. That's normal, you know. That's you got to ask the question. The thing is, when you mentioned the Giants, somebody posted about the Giants, and I had a bit of look into this years ago, and yeah, I found newspapers from the 1850s, Midwest America, where all they've pulled archaeologists in and people from the universities and all the scholars to come and inspect these axe heads that are 4 foot wide. Do you know what I mean? You know, well, ain't nobody picking them up, are there? Why would you build a giant axe or giant spear tips? Do you know what I mean? Why do you don't, do you? You know, you can't pick them off a ceremony. You can't pick them up. So it stands to reason, doesn't it? And then if you look at the history, oh yeah, well, people have been talking about giants. You look at the Hopi and stuff, they're talking about giants. You know, you look at the Bible, they're talking about giants. You know, David and Goliath. Goliath had a bunch of brothers. So once they killed Goliath, they didn't tell you this in the kids' story at school, but they went off and hunted him down. Do you know what I mean? And you think, well, you know, there's something to it. And like the elongated skulls that Kelly mentioned as well, with the centering of the spine. I've heard that too. That's the same with that famous that Lloyd Pye was holding, that Star Child skull. I mean, that's some creepy stuff. That's got its spine hole in a different place, and they're saying it would make it more balanced. And our heads aren't really that well balanced. Do you know what I mean? And that was like made of enamel. That's a skull made of enamel with fibers in it. It's 3 times as stronger than a human skull. And they're pretty strong. So it's like, there's something going on, man. And the Neanderthal, they had a cranial capacity 200 centimeters bigger than ours. So something's not right, you know.
So something's not right. If you guys are super into that, Kelly and I did a show on forbidden archaeology, what, was it a year ago, Kelly? Maybe a year and a half? It's a long time ago now, but I think we should probably revisit that at some point. But go back in the archives. Kelly and I did a full show talking about forbidden archaeology. And this man, by the way, Kelly here, keeps an actual book. If you guys don't know, he keeps an actual like, because he knows, we know collectively, the internet redacts shit. Right? It gets dropped to the bottom of search engines. You can't find things anymore. He's got an actual book, like a physical. He prints shit out and keeps it because, well, guess what? You can't find it anymore. And from time to time, he shares it in the Discord. Kelly, you want to tell him about that?
Oh, what a hero.
Yeah, right? Go right ahead, my friend. You got tons of stuff to talk about here.
Well, for me, I started because of that same reason. You know, I mean, I never knew, because there's times where I had to dig and dig and dig, and I mean, I had to dig for what I found where it was like just a common thing, you know, but some of those stories, they will bury them. So, yeah, it took me a while. So when I did finally find it, I printed, because, you know, usually it wasn't really that hard, but I don't know, for some reason, you know, or they just, you know, they're gone, you know, or they're like out videos, they're off of YouTube, they're no longer there. Shit, even the publisher that wanted to put it up was even gone, you know, because I was following some of these people, but yeah, it's interesting where they don't even talk about some of this stuff, or they don't even look. But yeah, I have, I don't know, Michelle used to get pissed off at me because I spent a lot of money on printer ink, but, you know, because they're full color page, you know, for the whole thing, you know, they're pretty good. I call it my encyclopedia. That's volume 1. So
nice.
Kelly's got the Masonic set from 1897 from 2020. Really, Kelly, you do. Well, I mean, you do. I mean, Kelly, I've got books from 1897 that are, I don't know, a good 3 feet tall. You know,
nice.
Well, I mean, if you stack them in on it, but the thing is, though, is that was that guy's information back then.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what you call ancient knowledge. That's what that is. Yeah.
Well, you know, John Lamb Lash, who wrote Not in His Image, who wrote about the Gnostics, he does a lot of etymology with it, you know, checking the root words and stuff. And he says, I mean, I don't know, I didn't check it out, but he reckons the original meaning for the word myth means sworn testament of kings and priests. So
that's crazy.
If that was
that's
true,
really crazy. I mean, but you look at the stupid information that's in the Masonic, you know, the history of Freemasonry. A lot of it goes back to ancient building, you know, and the funniest thing that gets me about things like that is they bound books like that backwards. Am I breaking up? I lost you.
No, you're good.
I heard some feedback. I'm sorry. But, I mean, I look at those books. I mean, there's one that I haven't even opened. They're wrapped in wax paper. They're from, like, 1850. You know, they got a little teeny tiny wooden hand-planed thing, a binding protector, wrapped inside the wax paper in a dovetailed box that was mailed to the address in 1829. I think May of 1829.
That might be the one book the Vatican Library wants. That might be the one book they ain't got, Jay.
I took the penknife and very carefully, not even to scratch the wood, so I could get my pliers on it to pull the nail out of it so I could slide the top of it off. And I immediately closed. I pulled one book out, I cannot lie. And I very carefully unwrapped it. I closed the book. I put it back in the thing. I put it back in there, and I pushed the nail in with my finger so I didn't have to use my penknife the next time. It's been opened once.
Nice.
But the world of Pac is what it is. Epic, depending on how you say it. You know,
and look,
I'm from Ohio.
In like modern times where it's like, oh, the internet, right? But think about it. Think about 50 years from now, how all this shit we're talking about will literally be gone. You won't be able to find jack shit on the internet because it's...
Yeah, we're going to be paying Kelly $4,000 for a copy of his shit.
Exactly. Keep that shit, Kelly. Don't get rid of that.
No, really,
Yeah,
there were Masons
true.
that came to the house and they wanted to buy the books. I made the mistake of one time I put them on eBay and I got 83,000 emails in one day. I had to close the account and everything. You know, I just couldn't deal with it, so I just shut it all off and deleted it all and opened a new one.
Did you get?
I'm so glad Kelly's done that. I wish I'd have done that, Michael. Right? I always regretted that because I never had a printer when I first started this, and I always had this intention of having a proven stuff, speculative stuff, and half-proven things. Do you know what I mean? I never did it, and it's only this year since I got hacked, strangely, during the Rona stuff. I've had to start backing things up now. I never bothered doing it. Do you know what I mean? All them years, and like you say, when you did that Roswell show the other day, I thought, well, I've got something gold here, because I've seen a photograph of somebody caught the Roswell UFO before it crashed, and it had a halo around it, as if it was a plasma field, and some farmer had got it, and it's black and white, it's really old, and I thought, great, I can get that off the internet. Man, I could not find. I spent the whole show looking for that. Gone, scrubbed.
I'm telling you. So since we started this show again, I'm very proud. 3.5 years now. Kelly's been with us almost all of it. What's up, Kelly? Shout out to Kelly. Since we started this thing, we did shows 3.5 years ago that I can't find this shit anymore that we did shows on then. So if you're telling me they're not doing that 1984 shit where they're literally redacting history in front of our fucking eyes, you are dreaming in such a short span. That's ridiculous. It's happening. I promise you guys it's happening. And well, why? Why do you think? It cuts to the heart of what we're talking about tonight. It's because there is a great reset happening. It's just happening right as every institution digitally everywhere, right? They're removing books from libraries. They're banning books and shit. I mean, look what the fuck is going on, people.
You can't buy them at Barnes & Noble anymore.
No.
The books that I had to read to get into college.
Yeah. You can't.
Barnes & Noble makes a really nice set of classic books. They're all the same size. They all fit on the shelves nicely. They're all bound nicely. They're all in a paper wrapper with a leather binder on it. You know, the Bible to the Art of War to all of them. They're not there anymore. They're not selling those books anymore. It was a classic. To Kill a Mockingbird, you know, that just without the redactions.
Right.
You know, we're losing that. I mean, I have a library in my house, and when I notice there's a book that I had to read to get into college, it's not in my house, I go find that book because I want it. If I can't find that book, it bugs me. And then, you know, you go to some place like Barnes Noble or, you know, the bigger box bookstores and stuff like that, even online, and try to find them, and then you have a hard time. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I've got a Bible from 1649. It's written in German, so it's absolutely no good to me. But, I mean, you can't edit that. You're going to come over to my house and
exactly.
take it away from me?
Jay, means you got to learn German. Get busy, brother. Kelly, tell us about that book. Tell us about how Kelly's been documenting this shit like literally in real time. He's like printing stuff when he finds it. That's just not available. That's why you started this. How long ago was this project started, Kelly? You're printing and saving this stuff.
I've been probably doing it for the last, I don't know, probably 7 years now? Oh.
See?
Yeah, about 7. Yeah. I started doing that 7 years, but I digitally, you know, I have stuff that's on another hard drive that I can get to. But again, you know, that's even older. But, you know what I mean? I just wanted to have something where people can hold and see for themselves, you know what I mean? Like, I'll pull up subjects, you know, like elongated skulls. I have a whole thing on that. Or like, well, similarities throughout history, kind of like what we're talking about now, you know, or, you know, where it's, I mean, I'm talking through like religion all the way through just regular lifestyle. And, you know, like I said, for a while there, I was kind of doing a live show that I was doing. But I don't know, man, I kind of like how you got your setup too. But, yeah, I did a few shows back then, or, you know, a lot of people were, you know, they always keep bugging me now, still even today, you know, to get my show started back up. But Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and again, you guys are correct. If you guys want or even needing some of this stuff, like if you even sometimes now, like I should have done it a long time ago. A lot of these videos that they had, some people had some great stuff on YouTube, but now since the censorship started, that they're covering up. It's just another cover up. It's just like you're saying, the whole reset. They want to reset all history because history is only kind of I don't know some of the sayings that some people had, but the one it was is like history is made by the winners, right? All history of their domination, everybody they fought were the most incredible, evilest enemies of the world that they had to dominate. That's what you read about, like ancient Rome and Greeks and whatever stuff like that. All the barbarians that they fought, that they were all terrible. Genghis Khan, but if you read about some of the stuff, their accomplishments that they were doing, Genghis Khan was actually, even though he took over some of these, he wanted to incorporate, a better lifestyle. But a lot of people, of course, they don't want to be part of that until they've seen it, And he still had like different religions. It's not just one. I mean, there's some major stories about some of the stuff that a lot of these people, that were claimed that they were bad back in history. History sometimes doesn't have it all right. Or they change it to fit a narrative.
Looks a lot better in a Bram Stoker's book.
Or Anne Rice. Give me Anne Rice all day. I'll live in that world.
Well, I mean, Vod the Impaler. Vod the Impaler was the premise for that, so I'm sure some of that history got embellished,
No, hell yeah. Of course. And so it makes you wonder, right? Like, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to real quick before, later, I just wanted to add to where the connection for me too, before I lose this, was about what the Giants over in a similarity too, where the civilization that we're talking about earlier, right? What's the name again? The
Tartarian.
Yeah, the Tartarians, right? They even say that they might even the United States, right? Because again, the similarities of the buildings, stuff.
Architecture. Yep.
But the other connection for me to that is, because they're talking about it with giants, right? But over in Europe and all throughout, even like through Asia, on Japan and stuff like that. But all through area, like in there, they were talking about dolems. That's the same thing that I was talking about before, which a dolem looks like if you put it in the ground, it's like two stones standing up in a lid, or like a four square room with a lid on top of it. And these are giant, massive stones that weigh, hundreds of tons, but they're just balanced perfectly. And you can find them worldwide. But what here in the United States, what's interesting is that, they'll find the giant stories here, that you find here in the United States, all through the Great Lakes area, Missouri, and, the old tales of, of the ancient, Native Americans that were here before. That's the whole interesting part too, is they, the redhead giants, stuff like that, like I talked about. Everybody's, if you follow this type of stuff, even, you ran across these type of stories. But that's another interesting clue or a connection I kind of just add to that. There was also dolems here in the United States, and that whole civilization came here too is kind of interesting too, that you kind of have the same similarities to that.
Yeah, that's the redheaded giants, the Lovelock Cave out here in Nevada, with that whole bit, right? There's a lot of stories about that stuff, about giants. It's not just biblical. There's a ton of other cultures that have actually pointed to that and said, hey, this is a real thing, just from a long ass time ago. Crazy stuff. So no hurry, as you guys know. Nobody tells us when to stop, but we got to wind this down in the next 30 minutes anyway. So let's continue. I
don't know, Kelly. I wanted to.
Sure, go ahead.
The Serpent Mound there in Ohio that we were talking about, I don't know, more than a couple of weeks ago, probably. That I was thinking about I have to take a trip out there because my family lives there and I have to visit them and all. But I was thinking about doing it at the winter solstice and taking a picture then.
That'd be nice.
That could be a good picture, right?
Oh yeah, that'd be.
I mean, we could get a lot of info.
I hear the squeak.
That's why I'm playing fetch. I'm playing fetch right now, so we're good. We're good. Yeah.
No,
Don't wake up,
was
Mrs.
awesome.
Strange.
That would be something to see, because I want to see what position is, that they're talking about. Is it the tail or the mouth, or what position of their of what they're seeing? You know what I'm saying? I think they would be. It'll probably, I don't know, you've been there. I don't know if usually they tell you a little story about it. They have a plaque there.
No, we went there and we were like playing Frisbee with our buddies and smoking hot pot, The oak trees as kids, Well, I mean, really, you went there and played around when you were kids. It's a giant, huge park. Nobody's ever there. No one's interested in it.
That's great. That would be
out of the 300 acres or whatever it is, there's probably 8 people there, maybe, and 2 of them are probably parks employees changing garbage cans.
Yeah, right. Soaking up a paycheck is what you mean. But okay.
Well, I mean, but really, I mean, making sure people aren't doing stupid. I mean, I agree with the World Heritage Site stuff. Been kind of nice if somebody over there in Iraq was standing by the place being like, come on, man, don't smash the head. That's just stupid.
Seriously. My God.
Why would you do that? This thing is 3,000 years old. Don't touch it.
Seriously. I mean, like I don't throw around the term irreverent, but holy shit. Are you going to really smash?
It doesn't matter what your religion is.
Exactly.
It doesn't really matter. Don't walk on the burial mounds.
It's messed up. It's messed up.
Don't, just...
Seriously.
Just...
Yeah. Like those are...
I mean, you look at the buildings here in Binghamton, just the stupid little city that I live into that I get to have my opportunities to, there are tons and tons of buildings that are built here. I mean, you're talking 5, maybe 6 stories tall, brick buildings with the wooden structures that are designed to collapse in on themselves if they catch on fire so they don't catch the building next door on fire. They had that hindsight of thought back in 1890 to 1920 to build buildings that way. But when you work on those buildings, they're built with recycled bricks from the ones that they tore down. They saved the bricks. Some of the bricks, like the timbers and stuff like that, when you look at a huge beam in a building that you cut down and you look at it, and the distance between, everyone knows about how a tree grows. As the heartwood grows stronger, those rings become smaller. The sapwood rings are the long ones. That's one of the reasons why our lumber now is horrible, is because if you look at it, it's all sap ring. Because the tree only grew 20 years, lodgepole pine.
How dare you know anything about anything? That's a bunch of bullshit, Jay.
I'm just a stupid carpenter.
Right? Exactly.
But the thing is, though, is when they come in and they go to tear these buildings down, people come from California, Oregon, Seattle, New York City, Philadelphia, and they go in and they take all of the wood. Sometimes they'll tear the buildings down piece by piece, so the crusher machine doesn't ruin the timbers, because they're built out of chestnut or oak, or you're talking about old growth lumber. The Japanese are awesome and how they manage their lumber there. I'm just a carpenter. You see those things. That awesome piece of wood,
and has an alien right in the middle. I'm just a carpenter with an alien right in the middle, bro.
That's funny.
Carpenter.
That's what Jesus said.
You know what? They always, all the people that I work with all the time, because I'm always the last person to get hired, and I'm always the first person to get fired. They hire me to come in and solve all the things that we don't know how to do this trim and blah, blah, blah. So I go in there, and as soon as I teach everybody how to do it, I get fired.
Right, of course.
That's my job.
Of course, right. Okay.
Well, we need to hire you to come in here and teach us how to do it, because nobody knows how to do it. And you're the only guy. So come teach us.
Right. There you go.
And then you get fired. You make too much. Well, I mean, it sucks because you only work half a year, because you're getting fired all the time. But you see things and people are like, we don't have time to deal with that. And I'm like, do you realize you're throwing away like a $3,000 piece of cherry lumber? They just, and they do it. So much crap goes into dumpsters. It really does.
Hell yeah.
The books that are upstairs in attics and things like that just get thrown away. I mean, I say a lot of times, when people die, we lose a lot of history because they're never going to be able to tell us that story. So, maybe we should listen to some of the stories, but the books and stuff like that just get thrown into the bottom of dumpsters on top of all the laughing plaster, pigeon shit, and everything else like that. Nobody cared. And it's like, you look at what happened with urban renewal. They tore a lot of those buildings down, the fancy ones that were in the earlier pictures in the beginning of the show. Why? Well, because it's got like 8 offices in it that are like 100 by 120. Who needs an office that size? So they just tear the building down and build some new modern piece of crap that, in all honesty, if any kind of mud flood or, regular flood or anything else like that came through, it would completely wipe it out. I mean, look at what happened in Katrina. There's an entire part of New Orleans that is nothing now. I mean, the history and everything that was there, I mean, it's all gone, but it was all built on, really piss poor foundations. If you look at somebody 1,000 years from now that wanted to start the architecture there, when they found a church foundation or something underneath the ocean,
Yes, sir. Yes,
it would just be flipped,
There you go. If you guys want building tips, we got your man. His name's Jay in New York. He's got the things. He's got the things. All right, let's start wrapping this up then. Who wants to go first? Regarding all this, the mud floods, regarding history not being completely correct, regarding all this, what do you think? What are your conclusions here? And like I said, do you like this in particular? This is new to me. This whole mud flood, Tartaria, new. It's all new. I remember when I was a youngster seeing Tartary on the map, right? On those old maps. I remember that very clearly, but I didn't know it was going to turn into this. So, well, thoughts, gentlemen? Who wants to go first? Kelly?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Just real quick, because I want to get off and I got to get up in the morning. But
sure.
Yeah, for this stuff, man, like for me again with everything that I read to and stuff like that, I research. But for me, it's just another proven point of for me is like the Anunnaki Sumerian story, like the whole where the creation of mankind was. It started all over the place on where you get different civilizations and stuff. But for me, that's just a conclusion. Another story. That's why I kind of really didn't mess around with it at first. But then, looking into it a little bit further, it kind of almost solidifies for me. It talks about all the stuff that everything else was, but this is a good topic, man. It's something for me that like I said, it's just another solidification that that those stories are even coming to me, that it's more saying that it's true. That's just how I get it. That's how I take it as, because, or it's something to that same effect happened. It happened, something like that, where somebody came here, stuff like that, civilization, whether it be that, it might be a different name, different people, whatever, but yeah. But real quick too, Jay, I was going to tell you, I don't know if you guys, if you want to talk about some pretty strange archaeology before I get off real quick, because for me, it would be the Japanese temples where they made them all out of straight, like wooden trees, right? The poles and everything. But what's interesting is none of that stuff is connected. It's all just hanging on top of each other, like the poles that make the roof and like all the shingles and everything. It's
everything.
is balanced.
Everything.
The reason for that is because
the trees, there's special care taken to make sure that you point the tree in the same direction that it was growing. You don't flip it upside down. Like if you put a 2x4 on a wall, you take the extra time to make sure that you're facing that 2x4 the same way that it grew out of the ground. Unbelievable technique. Some of their buildings are thousands of years old.
Yeah, what's interesting too, like I wanted to add though, is that the reason there's not connected to anything. There's no nails, there's nothing, and the reason for that is because of the earthquakes. It needed some flexing, So they kind of actually did a test. They did like a miniature version, in this earthquake at a university. It's like an earthquake room, but the whole floor got up to even like 10 something, the highest it could ever go. Well, that they've known that one's ever hit. And this thing, it rocked, and they didn't fall over, nothing. It just actually, and when it finally settled down, it just went back to the same structural sound it was. You don't even have to go up to really check it or nothing. Maybe a couple shingles had fall off, but other than that, structurally sound.
The soil actually liquefies there around what is that, Mount Fuji. When the earthquakes happen there, the soil actually liquefies, and the buildings actually float. The modern buildings that they build now sink because they have concrete and the modern foundations and stuff like that. The older buildings are basically stacked up on a pile of rocks that are allowed to move around with the earth. Sate Numa is the term that they use for that kind of construction. It's and one with the earth. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I really do. That's, Mike's thing with building the hydrogen container thing and all of that and everything else like that. It's one of the things that you have to keep in mind in your doomsday bunker, I suppose. You have to be in tune with the earth.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's a badass construction. That's all. I don't think I wanted to add. You guys have a good evening and great show, man.
Pleasure, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly. You're the best, my brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Right.
Have a great night.
All right. Later.
Rohan, go ahead, sir.
Awesome sauce. Yeah, I just thought, shame Kelly's gone. I was just going to tell him that it mentioned earlier in the chat about vitrified buildings. I think he mentioned it on the show. Some of these vitrified buildings made of glass. And I was going to mention, because he mentioned the Indus Valley, or the volcanic, or the glass from high temperatures. I don't know what they call it. Is it tritium or something? The stuff, the glass from like nuclear explosions and whatnot. And they found a lot of that around the Indus Valley, Pakistan. They think there might have been ancient nuclear explosions. There's certain areas with 100 times more background radiation. But when they first discovered that, a guy fell down a hole and found a room. And he thought he'd found a glass statue of a man in a chair, until he realised you can see the organs inside. And then when you realise the walls are vitrified, you're like, no, this is a guy that got caught in it and got turned to glass. Imagine that. That's just crazy, isn't it?
Wow.
You can see his organs through it, and he's intact. It's crazy.
That's pretty nuts.
I would want to see that.
Damn right. They got an exhibit here in Vegas. It's like it's called what's it called? The human body, something like this. I don't know, but they have like actual like cadavers sliced into those tiny slices in glass
cubes, and yeah,
like literally the whole like length of the body type thing, like exhibited in glass. I've never.
Yeah, they have one of those at the National Mall and the Smithsonian Institute too.
Yeah, I think it's
cubed, man.
I can't remember which casino it's at down here, but it's in one of them right near it, down in the middle of the strip. Me and a buddy of mine, the anthropologist buddy I talk about from time to time, fantastic dude. If you're out there, shout out, buddy. You know who you are. He listens to the show, him and his wife. But the thing is, we were trying to go in and check out that exhibit, and it was locked down or something. Like when we went, there was some problem, or I don't know. Kids with bubble gum or some shit. I don't know. So they wouldn't let us in.
Someone stole a cube.
Who knows?
One little sliver.
People touching shit they weren't supposed to touch. You never know. Anyway, I never got to see it. I mean, I guess I could go back, but nobody that lives in Vegas goes down to the strip. Nobody does that. Nobody.
Well, I mean, we don't go to our local museums either.
Exactly.
We have them everywhere. And we have local artists here that are world famous. I actually have one with a museum stamp in the house from him, Del Salvo. It's hanging in the living room right next to the flat screen TV.
Oh, yeah.
It was in a museum, and they closed, and for whatever reason, it got sold off, and I picked it up, and sure, I'll give you $50 for that. It's cool. It's a huge painting with silk. You know, they layered silk over top of it. He was a brilliant artist, but
exactly.
Anyway,
go back, Teppy. Let's let Rohan finish up. He started. We cut him off.
I'm sorry.
Not me too. I started cutting him off, and then you continued, and then Rohan. Wait.
I know what you did last civilization.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing, though. I didn't get to ask you because you had audio issues when you first hopped on. Have you heard of this Mud Flood Tartaria thing up to this point?
No, that's the thing. No, it's not until recent. I've seen the word before because I've been doing this for about 20 years. I've seen the word come up, but I just assumed I thought it was about Russian oligarchs. You see what I mean? And see, you get switched up. And Jennifer made the point of there's Sumerians that spoke with a C, and it's nothing to do with ancient Iraq. Sumerians. Do you know what I mean? So it's so easy to. I've said it before, but it's so easy to miss these things. It's not Pokemon, is it? You can't catch them all. You know.
No, hell no. Apparently not. My dog. If you can hear it, she's like a 10-pound Cujo attacking my foot. Anyway, don't.
She's looking at watch. She's like, come on, what's going on? This is extra long, dude.
Exactly. Don't mind that at all. Can you hear that? She's freaking
out.
Oh, I can. That's it. Right. Oh, you pushed it too far. You took it too far, Mike. Exactly. You took it too far.
10-pound.
Time for the walk.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Probably knows how to read the clock.
Yeah, exactly. So you never heard of this, Rohan, and so interestingly, there's a lot of tie-ins to some different spots in history. I think that's the oddness of this, how it kind of fits, right? It fits a lot of things.
I can't believe you tied into the show added today as well. Is that see how it works?
Wow. Oh, speaking of the show, you did. Why don't you tell everybody about your podcast? I've been Rohan's asked for weeks or months even to start his own podcast because he's brilliant, and he's like, nah, I got this, that, the other thing. You know, life, it gets in the way. I'm like, get your ass on the podcast. And guess what?
And then bam, bam, bam.
We got episodes out. We got episodes out. Tell them about your podcast.
Internet. Yeah, it's got Exiled Minds, Liam Martin. I'm going to try and do for a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. GMT. It's this tech stuff's hard, man. It takes some working out. Well done, Mike, on sorting all that out. It's not as easy as it looks. It's a mission, but you know.
That's why I put myself on TV. It's not as easy as it looks on TV, right? On TV. Everybody's like, why don't you say this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do the show this way, the other way? I get all kinds of feedback. It's fine, but I'm like, okay, check it out. It's not as easy as it looks. Go ahead, try it. Try it. Just try it.
I was feeling you earlier. So it takes one stupid little thing to go wrong. You're out your flow, and then you're trying to talk. You're trying to get the mouse. You're trying to do it without making noise. You got to click, click, click. Come on, open. It's crazy.
This, that, the other thing. You got the dog chewing on your foot, right? It's just the way it goes. It's okay. So, like I said,
yeah, it's great.
You guys are ready for the construction business now. I mean, really, it's a constant sea of chaos.
Yeah.
Yay! Here we are in a constant sea of chaos.
Sounds about
it. Well, you got to do what you got to do, ain't you? We've got to step up. You know, I want to pick up James as well. When they mentioned Solcito Paranormal, and Jennifer's channel is great, man. I'm loving that. Might start doing some reactions and responses. Awesome.
And follow the Night Stalker over on. I linked that down below. It's all down below. Scroll all the way down the bottom. You'll see everybody's like friend. If you have a YouTube channel, Friends of Troubled Minds, everybody's there. Please go follow those folks. Amazing. Again, think of all the great calls we get. If it's just me, it's boring. It's boring, right? Like I try to do my best, but I'm one dude. It's boring. When all you guys contribute, you know who you are. Everybody was just mentioned. Scroll down. There's links. There's everything. It's all there. Please go give love to the folks who contribute to this show almost every night. And it's like I said, thank you. Special shout out to Derek and Jennifer tonight for bailing me out in that first couple hours because, well, I was struggling, but what can you do? What can you do, right? Go follow those folks. Give them some love. Follow them on YouTube. Hit the notification bells, all that good shit. So thank you again. You guys know who you are. Of course, Kelly, Rohan, Jay. You guys are all the best as well. But yeah, Rohan's got a podcast, guys. Rohan's got a podcast. Scroll all the way down. You'll find it. Boom. EMP. What are we calling that? EMP for the brain. The Exiled Minds podcast. Boom. Boom. EMP for the brain. All right. What else, Rohan? What else, brother?
That's good for me. Just a last final thought, and with the books and stuff. Yeah, I was writing stuff down. That's a great idea, and I was serious about that because you think about it, and it's no joke. It's no joke. They put this stuff in your face and laugh at you. Jeff Bezos sells books, then invents a Kindle, and then invents Amazon Fire, and now they're retracting things, literally burning books in front of your face.
Yeah. That's interesting how it was started with used books. And then once you make $1 billion on used books, then you start just redacting books from history to meet.
Yeah, and bear in mind, folks, digital media and printed media covered by completely different copyright laws. Okay, you can lend a physical book, you can sell a physical book, you can give a physical book away, but your digital ones, you can only keep it for you. You can't sell it. They can retract it. They can edit it without telling you. You know, you might read that book once, and the next day it's all changed.
Exactly right. And that would be straight out of 1984, The Ministry of Truth. And one day soon, I don't know how soon, but one day soon they'll take us off of YouTube, and they will take us off of the places where you expect to see us. So you know what to do. Go follow us on Rockfin. Rockfin is a free speech platform. Get your ass over there. Links are down below. It's free to sign up, even though when you click the thing and it says pay the $10 a month, that's how you support the show, but you could X out of that and just join for free. So don't forget, that's probably where we'll end up in the end here. So just so you know. All right. Thank you, Rohan. You're the best, my brother. Jay, let's wrap this up, my man.
Well, I'm going to buy a ham radio tower and rebroadcast it as soon as I get your permission.
Okay. And then you're going to end us both in jail. So whatevs. We'll see. We'll see how dark it goes in the next dark winter.
But no, I mean, I don't know, Mike. I mean, you're doing an awesome job. You know, you bring a conversation to the table. You bring a lot of brilliant people together, and we have fun. We learn things. You know, we're remembering stories. You know, and we won't forget. You know, the thing that Kelly's doing is absolutely awesome. I'm telling you, he's going to be like, you know, Mason's 2.0.
Exactly.
With it's here it is written down. You can actually grab it and hold it and put it in your hand. You know, another reason to buy the farm, because there's a Brighton press in the basement. You know, we'll have to be putting you know, we'll have to have somebody down there with a great pair of glasses picking up a typeset to put in there to ink the individual pages, but you know, and we'll send them out for $4,000. The one thing was $4,000. The one set in 1900s. You know, the guy paid $4,000 for the set. The brand new set right now costs $4,000. You know, that's how much money they're selling those encyclopedia sets for. You know, they're valuable books to somebody because obviously they're getting the money for it and they're printing them.
Well, money aside, because, well, you know, money is paper after all. But, you know, knowledge is power, isn't it? And that's
indeed.
What down to. Yeah. I mean, you know, short of like, how much do you think you would value your entire knowledge base at? Not just directed at Jay, directed at everybody. Everything you've learned in your entire life, right? What would you sell that for? And not just
it's invaluable. There's no dollar amount.
Exactly. However, guess who's stealing it from us? For a free
daily.
For a free login and a free email account.
Yeah. Text messages, pictures sent back and forth between each other, all of it, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Hey, Daryl, don't put that on the show chat. I'll give you a private call on the Discord.
There you know. There you go.
It's all there. It's, you know.
And if we hook up to computers, then they can steal our ideas directly then, can't they? Yay!
Yay!
Oh, just grab yourself the Neuralink as soon as it comes out next year for Christmas for $19.99 and zap it into the side of your brain.
This nice set of headphones, if they just put the Neuralink right on the top strip here, you know, so every time I put my headphones on, it like connects, you know, it's like makes this sound. You know,
does it really?
Hey, why not?
It really makes that sound?
I don't know. I ain't plugging one of those things into my brain. No thanks. No thanks. Just saying.
On that one, just a side note on that, Mike. Did you catch the story about DARPA making that helmet a few years ago for soldiers, where it will pulse the brain and turn off the emotion centers?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I saw that one too. Geek.com or something like that. It was on.
I don't know how I missed it. I think it all, like I have too much, like you can only store so much. I think it all kind of comes and goes. My brain used to be it was like two types of brains, right? Like in everywhere in between, but like there's like people that like process information super fast and don't remember much. And there's people that like remember a ton of things and process less fast, right? It's like kind of RAM and hard drives and how it all works together. Not saying you can't do both, but I'm saying that, right? Like that's kind of the way your brain develops and works. Mine used to be the old way where I just put a ton of information in and carry it forever. But my God, for 3.5 years of doing this, I can't keep it all in there. It's impossible. Like literally, like
3,000 articles a day, dude. There's no way.
My God, yeah. And you guys, all the calls, all the amazing stuff that you guys bring up too, it goes in, right? And it's in there somewhere, but accessing it back is becoming more and more of a challenge. So, yeah, there you go.
That's why it's so important that we talk to each other, because always it's not about what I know. It's about the conversation that we're having with each other that brings that little tidbit out of the back gray matter that was stored away in there. You know, it's all about getting out the Costa records when we were talking about that and stuff like that. And I was like, it's really making me believe that everything that we need to know, we already know. We just don't know how to get it out of there.
Yeah, I sometimes sit there. Dude, I've been sat here doing this thing for a year now, this radio stuff, and I sit there thinking, I don't know, I'm going to talk about it. I feel stupid, and people start talking, it triggers things, doesn't it? And then you realise you know more than you think, you can do more than you think, we're so much better than we realise, man. We've had this forever telling us we're crap, homicidal apes that are all born sinners, and it's just rubbish. We're potentiality, amazement people. That's what we are. Anyway,
I'll tell you, as a master carpenter, I mean, I build altars for churches and stuff, you know, hang crown molding and all kinds of crazy stuff. You have to be smart enough and old enough to realize that if you don't do it right, you have to do it over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know how many times I've done it over? Oh, my God. You learn the hard way. Sometimes you learn the hard way.
But that's how you learn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You don't learn by just getting me passed off because, you know, well, you got a 69.1. Good enough. You can be a doctor, you know.
That's right. You can't give driving licenses out based on how short a skirt is, can you? Because that's not safe.
Totally not.
Well, it depends on who's giving out the driver's license, I suppose, Ron.
No.
You know?
No.
You don't talk about it.
I don't know how we got here. But okay, all right. Let's get the hell out of here. Jay, let's wrap this up, brother. What do you got? All right. My man?
Brevity is the soul of wit today, Mike. It really is.
Okay. All right. No. All right. Okay. Hold on. So let me play some music and let it go for just a sec before you finish up before this thing goes. All right, here we go. This is the infamous J-Tro. Or is it famous? Infamous? Famous? What do you prefer, my friend?
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I just enjoy talking to you guys. Okay. You know, that's all it really is. I mean, I do. I let the mind wander and having the conversations with everyone. But perfect. The thing from Oscar Wilde today is, after all, the only proper intoxication is conversation.
The only proper intoxication is conversation. Oscar Wilde. Thank you, Jay. The infamous outro. You're the best, J-Tro. I can't say I disagree. Great shit. Rohan, anything else, my brother? GT.
No, that's good, man. Love that. Brilliant.
Brilliant. All right, so you guys know the drill. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, aside from a tech glitch here or there. We'll be back. God willing, we got tomorrow. Is the good news. Bad news is we're done for tonight. You know the drill. Follow all the folks. Follow Jennifer. Follow Rohan. Follow Jay. Follow Night Stalker. Follow Phil who called. Follow everybody. Links are down below. Get your ass down there. Follow all those folks. Listen to all the stuff. And we're going to keep on trucking. We're going to keep on doing this and considering all the amazing things in this world and in this universe and in this multiverse. And there you go. Here we are. Just a quick shout out on that. Let's see, who else do we got? HB says, Mike, to really process the subject collectively, you'd have to sort of campfire or roundtable. Each week there's too much about Tartaria. And that's why I was a little scared to do this, because I knew that was the case. But, well, I think we got through it. Thanks to all of our fine friends. So you know who you are. Thank you so much for calling and contributing tonight. Bad news, like I said, we're done. Good news, God willing, we got tomorrow. You guys are the best. Anything else? Howls? Beat the chest? We got a special show on Sunday, by the way, coming up with James, our good friend of Salcedo Paranormal. We're going to do, actually, I'm going to play this because there's just too much. So let's do this and go. All right, just one moment here. Let me, all right, I guess I got to put my drink down. I hate when you have to put the drink down. All right, let's just play this as we finish. All right, just a real quick announcement before we finish up here. Sunday night, we have a Halloween special. All right? So we're going to start on James's show at 5 p.m. Pacific time. All right, that's 2 hours earlier than normal Troubled Minds. We're going to do an hour with James. James is going to basically interview me, and we're going to talk about Halloween shit and get us going and whet our appetite. We'll take 1 hour off, and at 7 p.m. we'll start our regular show with James on here. So we're going to do 2 shows that night, and we're going to go as late as it takes. We're going to go Halloween style and talk about all kinds of whack Halloween shit. So it's all over the place, taking phone calls, taking ideas, taking whatever. Why do you love Halloween? What is Halloween to you? All that other stuff. Kind of a coast-to-coast, ghost-to-ghost sort of, without the coast-to-coast, we'll just cut that bit out and we'll do other things. So there you go. Just a quick announcement. That's what's happening. James and I kind of nailed that down tonight. We'll do some black-eyed kids. We'll do some leprechauns. We'll do some shadow people. We'll do all that stuff. It's all in the cards and whatever else you want to talk about. Why do you love Halloween? And there we go. That's what's going on. That's what we'll do on Sunday night. So don't miss it. 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll do James' show. Take 1 hour off. 7 p.m. Pacific. We'll start Troubled Minds with James and truck on as late as it needs to be. So there we go. Anything else, folks? It's GTFO.
Hop in the penalty box.
There you go. Hop in the Discord if you guys have not joined the Discord. The conversation goes on usually most of the way through the night. Go to troubledminds.org, click the Discord link, and also I will put a Discord invite right here. And you can find it right in the chat. And let's do it. And let's get the hell out of here. All right. See you over there.
Our wet chihuahuas are crying tonight.
All right, there we go. Come say hi on the Discord, guys. There's the actual link, and get your ass in here. We'll catch you soon. Have a fantastic night. See you tomorrow. More Troubled Minds, 7 p.m. Pacific. See you tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll see you tonight right here on the Discord. Alright, I'm going to fade this out. Catch you guys there. You guys can hang around Rohan and Jay. No pressure. Just asking for a friend. Okay, all good. I guess we'll find out.
We'll be around.
Alright.
We'll be here.
See you there. Killing it. Here we go. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for supporting the show. Spread the word. See you tomorrow. Have a great night. Oh, yeah. From our Troubled Minds to yours.